Well, about a minute and a half ago, we finally managed to switch controls. I happen to be with Al Jolson now in Studio 7, which is about 50 feet down the hall. I'd like to give you the picture. We're in a much larger studio. It's about 50 by 50. There's a piano sitting in the middle of the floor. Harry Axed at the keyboard. Al and I are sitting across from each other at a long table. He's got a mic in front of him on a boom. A boom means a suspended mic. I've got a mic in front of me that's the feature mic. That's the short one with no jokes. And seated around the room, we have 20 or 30 people. Henny Youngman, Joey Fay, Yuki Sharon, and guests. Leo Lindy is here. And incidentally, I'd like to take a moment out to thank Leo for making sure that Al got here tonight safely and soundly. Leo, my pop. We have a lot of people that have suddenly appeared from out of nowhere sitting in the sponsors booth. And I called up Beth and told her to be sure and listen because we both enjoyed the Jolson story. And Al is sitting across from me. So as Joey Fay would say, Joey Adams, so what's new?
Well, I don't know. You asked Joey Adams what's new. I don't know how close I am to this mic. I haven't...
No, anywhere you want to work, the engineer will...
Anywhere I want?
Yeah.
I can even sing out. I don't have to purr like a crooner, sing boo-boo, anything like that, really give out. Like a healthy individual at 3:45 in the morning.
I want to tell you one thing, Al, that right at this moment, the show is being listened to from New York to St. Louis and from Maine to Miami, and we've got an audience of a minimum of 850,000 people. And for an all-night show, we think that's a lot of people, and I think it'd make you feel pretty good.
You want to know something? Yeah. When I was on the radio in the daytime, I never had that many people.
Yes, you did. What would you like to sing?
Anything you want me to sing. You Made Me Love You, Swanee, April Showers, Sunny Boy, Rose, anything.
How about Rosy, my favorite?
Well, Harry only knows the chorus of Rosy, and it's kind of sketchy. He will give it the Kneisel Quintet touch. If you'll give me that da-da-da-da-da-da, but play it in a low key. This hour of the morning, I want to just croon. Easy like. 2 choruses. Rosy, you are my posy. You are my heart's bouquet. Come out here in the moonlight. There's something sweet, love, I want to say. Your honey boy, I'm waiting. Those ruby lips to greet. Don't be so aggravating, my blushing Rosy, my posy sweet. Rosy, you are my posy. You are my heart bouquet. Come out here in the moonlight. There's something sweet, love. I'm gonna sing about my baby. Your honey, your boy, I'm waiting. Those ruby, those lips to greet. Don't be so aggravating, my blushing Rosy, my posy sweet.
You know...
Barry,
yes.
I bet you don't know where that song is from.
Well, before you tell me, I just want to say one thing. You know, there's the old story about you can shoot me while I'm happy.
Yeah.
If I had ever thought that someday I'd be sitting across the desk from Jolson while he sang my favorite Jolson tune. Right now you can drag me out. I'm all through. I don't want to hear any more.
No, I want to tell you a funny thing. Really, this is funny. This song was sung by Faith Templeton in Weber and Fields Music Hall at 29th and Broadway. I was a kid, hungry in New York, didn't have a job, and I walked up to Weber and Fields, the stage door. I went in, and somebody asked me what I wanted, and I told him I wanted a job. He said, a job? I said, yeah. He said, what kind of a job? I said, as a chorus man. Well, I was too little for that job, and I didn't get it, and still hungry. I walked up the street and found another rehearsal hall, and there was a show rehearsing called Billy Van and the Errand Boy. And Mr. Sam H. Harris was the producer and owner of that show. Told him my story, and he asked me what song I knew. Well, I'd haunted the door of Weber and Fields so many times in the past 2 weeks before that I heard Faith Templeton sing that song. I knew it. But Rosy, you're my posy. That song is very old. I don't want to say how old it is, but I learned that song pretty good, and I sung it. And Mr. Sam H. Rice advanced me $20, which I paid 6 weeks room rent, and had a couple of bucks to go to a place on 14th Street called Riggs, where they gave you for 20 cents a steak, and with the steak, they gave you the biggest kind of bowl of bread. So I went with that show for a few months, and I got fattened out, and that's the story of the Moth of the Flame. Now, what would you like to have me sing, Barry? I'm here till you close up.
I'm very happy, Al.
Well,
How about Swanee, Mammy? Let me see. How about? I'm trying to think of the songs from the Jolson story. And
well, let me just mention one song that isn't in the Jolson story, and a lot of people have asked me why it isn't in the
Sonny
Jolson
Boy.
story. Yeah, Sonny Boy. Funny thing, when we produced the picture, when we, I don't mean produced the picture, but when we previewed the picture in Santa Barbara, we had Sonny Boy in the picture.
Uh-huh.
But the people cried so much after that, we couldn't get back to running the picture again. We came back to it, but the people weren't interested. I mean, they kept crying. They didn't look at the picture, so we cut it out. Now, if Harry wants to play Sonny Boy as only he can play it, and I'll sing it as bad as I can sing it, this hour in the morning, I want to tell you about the song, Sonny Boy. I don't like to sing it much because a lot of people attach a lot of sentiment to it. It's sentimental, all right, but it's corny as a deuce. Only thing it ever did for me, the royalties, I bought a home in Florida. Outside of that, nothing. But, Harry, will you play Sonny Boy? You want to play the verse and 2 choruses, and the second chorus, I shall emote. Climb up on my knee, Sonny Boy. Though you're only 3, Sonny Boy, you've no way of knowing, there's no way of showing what you mean to me, Sonny Boy. When there are gray skies, I don't mind the gray skies. You make them blue, Sonny Boy. Friends may forsake me, let them all forsake me. I still have you, Sonny Boy. You're sent from a heaven, and I know your worth. You've made a heaven for me here on earth. When I'm old and gray, dear, promise you won't stray, dear, for I love you so, Sonny Boy. When there are gray skies, I don't mind the gray skies. You make them blue, Sonny Boy. Friends may forsake me, let them all forsake me. I still have you, Sonny Boy. You're sent from heaven, and I know your worth. You've made a heaven for me here on earth. And the angels grew lonely, took you because they were lonely. I'm a lonely too, Sonny Boy.
That was wonderful, Al.
You like
Tell me, I remember that one very well. I remember it from the jazz singer. I think it was the jazz singer.
No,
wasn't it?
Singing Fool.
The following picture,
Yeah,
the
following
singing
picture,
fool.
Singing Fool,
There
yeah.
was a boy in it by the name of Davy Lee. Was it David Lee?
Davy Lee is right.
What happened to him?
Well, it's a funny thing. We were overseas, Harry and I, a couple of years ago, and a big, husky mug weighing about 180 pounds with more ribbons. He looked, he looked like a church window, you know, all those colors.
Uh-huh.
Had in front of him. Says, hello, Mr. Jolson. I said, hello, son. He says, you don't remember me, do you? Well, naturally, I mean, you don't want to make a kid feel bad. I didn't know him from a monkey. I said, your face is familiar. He says, it ought to be. He says, you had me on your knees singing Centerboy, did you? I said, you're not. He said, yes, I am. And that was the kid.
I'll be darned.
That's how old my uncle is. There
was a lot of talk. I remember there was a lot of talk, probably a whispering campaign. 8 years after the picture was made, they said that Davy Lee had died.
No.
They're probably trying to make a revival of the picture.
Maybe. No. No, he's very much alive. In fact, just a year or so ago, he was a master of ceremony at a nightclub in Pittsburgh.
Using David Lee, formerly the Singing Fool. Starring Al
years
Jolson.
ago, yeah.
What?
1929.
How about April Showers?
April Showers? Well, I tell you, suppose I sing a little lively song first and then go into April Showers. I'll sing April Showers first. Well, I wouldn't refuse you anything. Harry, play April Showers, a verse and 2 choruses, and we'll just, with a nice little lilt to it this time. I think better would be 2 choruses would be better, you see, because that piano is not a verse piano. I can tell it's not a chorus band the way he played that introduction. Just give me the introduction and we'll start in with the chorus. Though April showers may come your way, they bring the flowers that bloom in a May. And if it's raining, have no regrets, because it isn't raining. Rain, you know, is raining violets. And where you see clouds upon the hills, you soon will see crowds of daffodils. So keep on looking for a bluebird and listening for its song whenever April showers come along. Though April showers may come your way, they bring the flowers that bloom in May. And if it's raining, have no regrets, because it isn't raining. Rain, you know, it's raining violets. And where you see clouds upon the hills, you soon will see crowds of daffodils. So keep on looking for a bluebird and listening for its song whenever April showers come
What's the story of that one, Al? Do you remember?
Well, that's a Winter Garden song. I mean, not much story to that, except that Buddy DeSilva, who later became president of Paramount, was a kid that I discovered playing a ukulele at a place called Vernon outside Los Angeles. You know, it was
the meatpacking section.
The meatpacking section is right, but there's a nightclub there that was owned by a man, Baron Long, who now has the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles.
Racetrack owner, too.
Yes, he owned a part of Caliente and a part of the old track there, Tijuana. And I came out there and heard Buddy DeSilva play a ukulele for a Hawaiian dancer, and he looked a little bit like Hawaiian. He's Portuguese Hawaiian. And I asked him, would he play for me? And he said he would, and he came on the stage that next night. We're playing Sinbad that night, the Mason Opera House. I don't know, Spring Street or Broadway in Los
Spring
Angeles.
Street.
Spring Street. And he played the ukulele, and he said, Mr. Jolson, he said, I go to Hollywood High here, and I've written some songs. I took a song from him rather, called And Everything, and then he and I wrote together, I'll Say She Does, and I brought him to New York with me. He wrote April Showers. He wrote, A Kiss in the Dark with Victor Herbert, the lyric. He wrote with Vince Yeomans, the late Vince Yeomans, not T for Two, but, huh? They wrote many a song together, many big hit. I can't think of it now. I can't think of them now. And then he wrote this song for me, he and Lou Silvers, that I used in a show. And the following season, we collaborate on a song called Don't Mind the Darkness, Morning Will Come. The title was really Don't Mind the Darkness. And that was taken from a hymn called Dexa Fidelis that I learned when I was a kid when I went to St. Mary's in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And I took the melody and made it, Don't mind the darkness, morning will come, shadows are bound to go by, and when they fly, rosy dawn will kiss the sky. So, and we wrote a lot of songs together, and then Buddy started to write pictures, and then he became the president of Paramount.
It's a wonderful story.
Oh.
From a ukulele
Fishing will make you well, always written. So many big hits.
What happened to Yuki Sharon?
Who? Oh, I don't know. We sang a lot of...
What's the story of the Winter Garden, the runway and everything, the picture they tell in the story they tell in the picture? Is that true, Al?
About the runway?
Yeah.
In a way it is. I had seen the runway before that, though. I was over in Berlin, and I saw Max Reinhardt do a play called Sumeron, and they had a runway in it, and where people made their entrances and exit, coming in and out of the theater, and that's how I got the idea. So now you can have me something. No match, no light. I've been trying to light a cigarette for 10 minutes. Well, go ahead.
Well, in the picture. Oh, here's one thing we've got to settle. You know, for about 3 or 4 weeks, people have been calling me up and they say, Barry, tell me the answer to a question. I got $5 bet, and I say, what's the answer? You know, we answer telephone calls as the show goes on. Tonight we're not answering calls. And I say, what's the question? They say, is it true that Al Jolson is actually in the picture of the Jolson story? And I say, yes. In the one scene on the runway where he does a soft shoe dance and he waves at the audience, that is Jolson. Am I right?
Yeah.
I recognize.
Well, I tell you, you see, Larry Powell was great and everything, but I'm not a dancer either, but he couldn't move his feet and swanny like I move. I've only got one step, and that step I insist on doing no matter what I'm in, and I did it in this. I wanted to show my wife that I was a picture actor, so they gave me a long shot 200 miles away. I don't know.
Well, it's a funny thing. As I say, I went with Buddy Clark, and when that scene came up, he poked me and he said, that's him. So I said, how do you know? He says, look at that head.
Look at that head. You mean on me it looks good, huh? I know.
No, but the shape of the head was different from Larry Park's.
Yeah, oh, yeah. He's got a nice head. He's got a pretty head. He's got hair. That's why it's different.
You've got hair, too.
I got hair, color. Yeah. Can't you, don't you? You can't comb it, don't try. I remember those kind of jokes.
There's the part that's exciting in the picture, and this is by no means an attempt to plug the picture, but I want the people that are listening. A lot of people, most of the people that are listening now are outside of New York, and the picture won't leave Radio City Music Hall for about 3 or 4 years.
No, you're wrong. I think you're a little bit wrong, Barry. I wish your thought was right. You see, every 8 weeks, they put in there they have a contract, for so many pictures a year. And they, at the music hall, what I know about it, they see a picture before it goes in there, before. And they saw this picture and put it in. And everybody's talking about how long it's going to stay. Strange as it may seem, Harry Cohn, president of Columbia Pictures, he's in Los Angeles. He called me up yesterday. He says, Al, I heard you had a couple empty seats yesterday at the matinee. So I said, well, what do you want me to do about it? I said, look, Harry, those 2 empty seats I have no control over. And I said, another thing, the reason those seats might have been empty, in New York, these past weeks since I've been here, the weather's really been beautiful. Indian summer, it's been quite warm. And show you how true the remarks I'm going to make, I met a fellow tonight, and I said, he said, you've got a great picture I hear over there, Al. I said, yes, it's pretty good. He said, I haven't seen it, but I'm going to wait till it rains. Because, streets are jammed with people. They don't want to go in there to see a picture in the beautiful weather. But today, there was a line of 4 or 5 blocks around at 12:30, and there was a line there tonight. Harry and I went by, 7 or 8 blocks around at night. And with the ego of a ham predominates, I stood there and looked at him, but I went across the street in case somebody recognized me. I didn't want them to see me. But to see all those people trying to get in, I said to her, gee whiz, I wish this picture was showing at Lewiston Stadium. I said, holds about 20,000. They'd all gotten in at night. I know the people are going to get in there eventually. But when there's 2 empty seats, Harry Cohn gets mad as a dickens. But I just want to let anybody know, especially you, that matinees, they can get in.
Well, anyway, I said it without running any picture. What I'm getting at is outside of New York tonight, people are listening in Philly, and they're listening in Louisville, and they're listening in Canada. They're listening in Detroit, and in St. Louis, and Chicago. And when the picture gets to those cities, I want them to know what to expect.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, if they're listening in tonight, and it's around 4 o'clock, they're certainly going to go to those matinees.
Well, the one part that thrilled me, the one part in the picture is when Larry Parks wakes up out of his sound sleep.
Yeah.
And the ham bone is sleeping across the way. He did a wonderful part.
Bill Demarest.
Bill Demarest. He played quite a part in that picture. You had a wonderful support.
Well, I want to tell you, I put him in the cast myself. I engaged him, and I engaged the kid that played me as a little boy, Scotty Beckett.
Wonderful.
But we worried all the time during the picture because he grew like a weed. He was much taller than Larry Parks. Putting to finish the picture, we had to have him without shoes, so keep him a little close to the ground.
Tell me, was that really him singing?
What?
Is that really his voice, Scotty Beckett?
No.
It's a dub.
Yeah, it's another boy. I don't know if it's a dub. I don't know. You mean it's dubbed? Yeah.
It's dubbed in.
Dubbed by another little kid.
Because it's a wonderful boy's voice.
Well, we try to make it as near as mine, instead of a high soprano, a little baritone quality.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, may I interrupt? You came in the train with a pal of mine, Danny Shapiro.
Yeah.
And
songwriter.
Yeah, Danny. And Danny told me of an incident where you spoke to Larry Parks. He was making a picture for 20th Century. And,
no, not for 20th. He's still making for us. For Columbia, yeah.
And Buddy Clark is doing the dubbing of his voice. Is
yeah.
That right?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm referring to?
Yeah, well, Larry Parks told me he's doing a picture with Rita Hayworth called Down to Earth. And Buddy Clark dubs his voice in this. And he told me, he says, he said, that fella Clark is real good. He's excellent. He said, but I don't like to sing like that. He says, I sing different. Now, he don't sing at all, but he sings different. He says, I don't want those hot singers. I want to sing. He says, well, I'm used to singing. And one day during the picture we made it, he had a cold, and he wouldn't go on. He never sang a note, but he wouldn't go on because he had a cold. He said, I can't give it justice. Can't do it.
It's a very funny thing. I've never met Larry Parks, but the guy is
a nice boy. He's married to a very lovely girl, by the way, Betty Jarrett, and called me Mr.
Yeah.
Oh, incidentally, if I think he gets in tomorrow, and if he's only coming in for 2 or 3 days. I mean, 2 people are happily married and they live so far apart because up to this picture, Larry has only been making those B pictures, and there wasn't enough money for him to jump on here to see his wife, or vice versa. And she finally become a great big hit, practically the toast of the town. And especially when she sings that South America, Take It Away. And he told me last week, he says, oh, if I could only go for Tuesday to see my wife. Well, they gave him permission to fly, leaving tonight. I think he gets in tomorrow. And if I'm in town, or can find out where he lives tomorrow, I'm going to try to get him to come over here, because you'll meet a very fine kid. He's really down to earth. He's a nice boy. He really is.
Well, I've met Betty. Betty has been on the show 2 or 3 times, and if he's as nice as she is, the male version, they must be terrific people. I was going to say the big thrill of the picture is when he wakes up out of the sound sleep, and for the first time in the Jolson picture, you hear the Jolson voice. That's the big...
I love you. You remember that, Harry? I love you. All right. Start right there.
Can we wait 22 seconds because we got regulations? Because while we're using these 22 seconds, I can say that this is the Mutual Broadcasting System, WOR New York. And my guest star this morning is making radio history, Al Jolson, the star of the Jolson story, and another that would take too long to mention. You don't have to say anymore, and it's the Barry Gray Show, and it's 4 o'clock. If we'll wait just a second.
And in this thing, if you remember, he wakes up and he sings Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Well, I had to sing it so soft, because he's just waking out of a sound sleep. And I don't know, the man in the control room, I'll try to sing it as soft as Larry Parks sings the picture, because this was written by a fellow called James Thornton. Oh, many, many years ago, when I had a little room on 14th Street across from where his Lush House now. It was upstairs called the Academy Hotel. And I lived next door in another little hotel called the Trafalgar. I only had one blue suit, and I used to save that in case I got a Sunday job someplace. And this is the song I sang. I love you as I never loved before, since first I met you on the for my dream of love is all. I love you as I love you when you are sweet, when you were sweet, 16. That's the song he sings in bed when he wakes up.
Beautiful.
Now, I don't want to tire the audience that's listening in, the 850,000 that's in St. Louis and Milwaukee, Chicago, where have you, and Jersey, but if there's any other song you'd like to have me sing, maybe the late papers will come out and I will find out who won the 4th race at Bay Meadows. Huh? Yeah, no, let's sing California Here I Come.
I wanted to ask you if we can interject the stories. How long did it take Larry Parks to get the jutting lower lip, the motions of the hands, the hunching of the shoulders? He's got every Jolson trick down pat. So much so you forget he's Larry Parks.
Well, I made a moving picture of this, you know.
You made the picture first?
Well, no, but I made all the songs in sound and motion. I used to come to the studio about 7 o'clock in the morning, and right up against the wall, I stood, and I had about 8 or 10 or 15 or 20 feet of room, you know, to get around, because I don't stand still. And I'd wear a sweatshirt or a pair of overalls or anything like that. I mean, I didn't make up for it. No makeup.
Yeah.
And I would... Huh? And I'd sing these songs, and I had a camera in front of me. They'd photograph me, and I'd sing them exactly with gestures and all. And he would have then a little 60-millimeter film in his room, in his dressing room, and I'd go up with him. And he got so that he did it much better than me because I can't do a song twice alike.
Mm-hmm.
I never did. I mean, I couldn't have caught my own voice like he did. He just learned them like a parrot, but just perfect, absolutely perfect. Breathed at the right time, and his hands and everything. I gave him all the gestures, and the only thing he couldn't do was jump around with a couple of little bum dance steps I can do.
Well, the one scene that brought out the... of course, I'd never seen in blackface, and that's something that I will never get over. But the one scene where he does Rosy, You Is My Posy, where he stands in for Bill Goodwin in the picture, that particular part, that was wonderful. The acting that he
Well,
did.
I'll tell you what made it better than ordinarily would have been. It was one of the early scenes that was shot in a picture. And he was more scared than I was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in fact, at that time, I went on the stage once to see him work, and I saw how nervous he was that I left. But I just went back and congratulated him, told him, I said, don't be afraid, son, just go in there. And if you know the plot of the picture, he wasn't supposed to be too good at that time, you know.
Yeah.
So I didn't try to sing the song with all the effort that I gave most of the other songs, you know, like Mammy and Rockabye Baby and You Made Me Love You and all those songs.
Mm-hmm.
But in the picture, when he sings California Here I Come, he gives out. He claps his hands and, he really does. So, Harry, if you play California Here I Come, we'll try to give you a little rough idea. It's just a piano. It's not too easy. You think you got it? Do the best you can, Harry.
When the wintry winds start blowing and the snow is starting to fall, then my eyes turn westward knowing that's the place that I love best of all. California, I've been blue since I've been away from you. I can't wait till I get going. Even now, I'm starting to call. Oh, California, here I come. Right back where I started from, where bowers of flowers bloom in the spring. Each morning at dawning birdies sing, and everything the sun kissed me said, don't be late. That's why I can hardly wait. Open up that golden gate, California, here I come. California, here I come. Right back where I started from, where bowers of flowers bloom in the spring. Each morning at dawning birdies sing, and everything a sun kissed me said, don't be late. Oh, that's why I can hardly wait. Come on, open up,
You don't, Al, you don't mind the photographers, do you?
No.
I think I should redraw the picture because by now, you may think it's a very early hour, Al, 4 o'clock in the morning, but I'll bet you that people have poured out of Lindy's. The guy is probably losing money right this minute. Everybody has poured out of Lindy's saying, look, Jolson is on the air this morning, and they're rushing home to get to the radios, and by now we probably have 10 times more of the audience than we had an hour ago. And I think we ought to redraw the picture for you, give you a verbal picture. We're in Studio 7 at the Mutual Studios in New York. It's a studio about 50 feet square, and Al Jolson is sitting across from me. Harry Axe at the piano, and seated around on the floor we have Leo Lindy, we have Henny Youngman, who's come over from the Capitol Theater, Joey Fay, who just stepped in from the National Theater. He's doing a little cleaning up there, Julie Ocean, and Yuki Sharon from the Kraft Music Hall. Everybody's sitting around. We have a sponsors booth full of people. We have a couple of engineers that are trying their best to make this sound as good as the Columbia picture, the Jolson story. You notice those rapid plugs in there. I got to keep that thing on for 12 weeks or I lose money.
And by now I've sung my 8th song.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the picture, but did they bring out in the picture that Jolie at one time, or probably still is today, voted as one of the world's greatest whistlers?
Oh, yeah, that whistle.
How do you like that? Just because I whistle?
Do you really whistle with the fingers in your mouth?
Yeah, you know how I started whistling?
No.
Well, years ago, when I couldn't get a job singing, I used to follow around a couple of organ grinders till they chased me away, and when they'd get money thrown to them, from the different office buildings, from the windows, the Italian organ grinders, I'd whistle a chorus. And as they throw the money, I'd grab and run like the devil. And I started to whistle. I mean, I'll show you if you want me to. Harry will play Swanee. There's a funny thing. Nathan Kramer's sitting here, if you don't mind, it's not really a plug, but he's done a lot of wonderful things for him because, you can't get a room in town in any hotel, as you know.
Uh-huh.
And I've sent people from the coast over the Edison. I mean, it's no plug because they can't get in there. But he's one of the first. I think he remembered when he saw me with Dockstetter, and I whistled the American Patrol, which I do for a little bit in the picture. It's kind of a background, That's right, Harry. Oh, good. I don't know if you knew it. But if you play Swanee, I wish you would, and I'll show you. I'll whistle one of the choruses in Swanee. Mr. Engineer, oh, Mr. Radio Man, tell my daddy to come back home. He's listening to Jolson, And when it comes to the whistling, I think if I can keep these eyes open, Swanee, it is. That's good. You know it, huh? I've been away from you a long time. I never thought I'd miss you so. Somehow I feel your love is real. Near you I want to be. The birds are singing in a song time. The banjo strumming soft and low. I know that you yearn for me too. Swanee, you're calling me. Swanee, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. I'd give the world to be among the folks in GIX. I even know my mammy's waiting for me, praying for me down by the Swanee. The folks up north won't see me no more when I get to that Swanee shore. I love the old folks at home. Swanee, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. The folks up north will see me no more when I get to that Swanee shore. That's it.
You notice how the ham bones in here quick rushed in and put a WOR sign on the mic because maybe if there's going to be a picture taken, they want to get the local credit. Yeah, Henny.
Say, Barry, I always want to ask Mr. Al Jolson whether he was the first blackface comedian that appeared in blackface, or whether Eddie Cantor and those fellows followed him and put the black on, or what was the custom? Was that the custom those days for a single to go out and do blackface?
In vaudeville it was, not musical comedy. I was the first one to ever do a blackface in a musical show in New York.
That's what I mean.
What I mean by that is there probably have been ahead of me in legitimate shows such as dramas who played a servant, Southern plays or or any kind of play for that matter, that they had a butler or a waiter or anything like that. But at the Winter Garden, I was the first one that had the nerve, you might as well say, to put on blackface and talk back to the audience. You know, if a guy come in late, I'd say, where have you been? You know, you do that. But anyway, but I used to also have the famous crack, I mean, that's been done a lot of times. You know, when people walk out during your act sometime, I'd say, where are you going? I used to do that, but I cut it out because one time we were playing in Cleveland, and right in the middle of my act, a fella got up to go out. And it's very embarrassing, you know, to a person who's going out. They may have to catch a train or someone ill at home. Invariably, a comic or an alleged comic says, where are you going? So this night, this fellow in Cleveland, right in the middle of a song or something I was doing, got up and started to walk out. And I said to him, where are you going? And he answered me right back. What's the matter? Isn't this intermission? Since then, if I ever get a job, I don't say anything anymore.
He was probably laying for you, waiting for you to come through that line.
Yes, sir.
Jolie,
What?
tell us about the time you entered a Jolson contest and ran about fourth or fifth.
Well, in fact, I didn't even run fourth or fifth. They booed me off the stage. It was at the Haymarket in Chicago. The Haymarket in Chicago was a very funny thing. Frank Kinney, who's been dead and gone many years, he went on and won it. And I followed him, and they hollered at me and, get off of there, you bum, you stink.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They had a contest to pick the guy that worked most like Jolson.
That's right.
And you were booed off the stage.
Yeah. I blacked up and put on a flight wig with a lot of hair and a lot of loud clothes, and I went on and I sang, what was it I sang? It's better to have just a little too much than not quite enough. If ever a man ain't satisfied, it certainly is rough. And the guy like, it's rough, all right. Get off of there, you bum.
Where was that song, Rockabye My Baby? My Dixie Lullaby. Where was that?
Well, that's in a picture. That's in a picture. That's a little hard to sing without an orchestra. You know, rockabye your baby with a Dixie melody. But in singing a song like that, all Mammy songs, all songs of that type really came from Mammy. And a lot of songs I sang at the Winter Garden, I'd get them like in the afternoon and put them on at night with just a piano, you know, just a lead sheet in my hand, and would sing it right from the copy.
I'll never forget I was with a vaudeville act several years ago, and we were on the bill with Sophie Tucker. We were playing her music. We had a five-piece band, and we were on the bill with the Sonny Boy picture. Was that the name of it? And it affected the singer with our band so much in Trenton that he got on the train that night, went home and had to see his kid.
Really? Well, that's why sometimes I hate to sing the song. I never sang it overseas unless somebody asked me, you know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it.
I wanted to ask you, how about the Sunday night concerts at the Winter Garden?
Well, the Sunday night concerts at the Winter Garden, they became an institution. They really did. I mean, I remember one time we closed on a Saturday night. When you asked me about me hurting my leg, this really happened. On a Saturday night we closed, and we were supposed to open in Philadelphia on a Monday. So I thought I'd take the midnight train and go to Philadelphia. And I did. Well, the next night at 8 o'clock, they called me from New York to hurry up and come back on a Sunday night, you know, to do a Sunday night concert. I said, why? They said, well, it was around 9 o'clock, and the show is pretty bad, and we need you. And I said, I can't. I want a couple of days rest. I said, open Monday in Philly. Well, they said, you make it. Leave here at 9 o'clock, get in at 11. We'll hold the audience. And so said, we'll have a police escort meet you at the Pennsylvania station. So I jumped on the train at 9 o'clock. This was about 8:45 at the Bellevue Stratford. And I got to New York at 11, and I jumped in a cab, and they took me to the Winter Garden. The show was pretty bad, and I quieted them down. As you know, the front rows were all, in those days, performers and nightclub entertainers and saloon men and so-called mobsters, you know, those days. And we'd had the runway in before that. And after the Saturday night show, they evidently took it out. And instead of the runway, which was solid, they put a red piece of carpet, and they had it just tacked with nothing underneath, you know, but strung tightly from the front to the back. And me on the stage, I sang a song called I'm Glad My Wife's in Europe, 'cause she won't get back, she won't get back. And I took a leap from the stage, and boom, I went right through there and broke my ankle and my kneecap and everything. And those Sunday nights, really, what little success I've had, I owed a lot to those Sunday nights.
Uh-huh.
Because it wasn't a
Well, is it true as in the picture it's a command performance? You were not working on Sunday nights.
Well, in the picture?
No, in the picture it brings out the fact that on Sunday nights you weren't working, and then they asked you to...
Oh, yes, lots of times. I'd be standing back of the house like there, and the gang would start to holler, we want Jolson. And I'd go on. And I got sick of it because I didn't get paid, you know, and the Schuberts would fix it for somebody to holler Jolson, too.
You ever hear a story, Barry, about how Al Jolson, I don't know what show it was, Was it Bombo, where the show wasn't so good, and you went out in one and you threw the book away of the show and you just sang songs and the audience...
Well, no, there's a lot of
What
shows.
shows are there
Not
not?
big, no, Barry, we do it, Henry, we do a thing like that in a picture, and we don't go at great length on it because a picture's got to last just so long. You just can't run it
I
forever.
mean, that was a true story, though, wasn't it, years ago?
I used to, for instance, in the picture here, is a story like the Winter Garden. It got to be around 11 o'clock or 11:30, and it was getting pretty late. And so, and there was a love scene, and I said, go ahead. I said, she said to me, but I can't get along good with him. He don't want me. Southern show. And I said, well, go ahead and kiss him, because if you don't, I said, the people won't be able to get back to Brooklyn. They're going to, a lot of people in White Plains. Well, the people thought I was a little nuts. Well, in those days, I started to tell you before, a blackface comedian couldn't do that. You know, if he was being fresh, you know, out of character. But I spoke to the Vanderbilts and the Goulds and the Whitneys, and it was just a jolly time it was had by all on Sunday night.
Many the night in Big Boy, I've seen Jolson myself forsake the finale and just stay out there and finish the show, and the people were just as happy about it that they
I've
last
talked
20
about
minutes of the show.
Yeah, Barry, I just want to say this. I said to a fellow one night, I'm tired. You know, and the fellow says, how do you think we are sitting out there, you know what I mean, applauding all hours of the night? Of course, that makes me sound a little egotistical saying that.
But a guy who's lived as many years as I have, sir, these moments come few and far between, and I'm glad to be here.
Well, I've talked about it. I've talked about it many times. The fact that you would bring the whole cast out on stage, and you would tell jokes. And I've had 50 people up here that I've asked questions about Jolson, and of course the most famous story that I've heard about Jolson is the one about the overcoat with your father. Is that a true story?
Yeah. Where I sent him the overcoat?
Yeah.
And he asked me how much it was, you mean?
Yeah.
And I told him that really I paid $100 for the coat, and I told him it was only $20. And 2 weeks later, he says, "Send me 6 more. I sold this for $30."
That's the story.
Something like that.
Wonderful.
But the cutest story I ever told of my dad, because it really happened. I came to Washington with a show, and my dad wasn't much for theater, elderly gentleman, and he was quite a scholar and a rabbinical sort of a figure. And I told him, I says, Pop, I says, this was Wonder Bar, quite a few years ago, about 18 years ago. He said, what kind of show is Wonder Bar? I said, Pop, you don't know. I said, this is the greatest show we ever saw. I said, not only will this show play, I said, all over America and all the key cities. I said, I sing in French, I sing in German, I sing in Spanish, I sing in Russian. I said, then, I said, after it plays here, and the moment I said that, he took out a big old-fashioned watch and snapped it, and he said, put in your 8 o'clock, put in your 8 o'clock. I said, Pop, you're not listening, I'm telling you. Not only will the show play all over America, I said, when it gets to America, it'll play England. It'll play before the crown heads. And he took out that watch again. He said, put in your 8 o'clock, put in your 8 o'clock. And I said, Pop, you're not listening. I tell you, when it gets through, I said, playing there, then I'm going to make a picture of it. I said, and it'll be, it'll revolutionize everything because it'll play all over the world, China, every place. And he said, put in your 8 o'clock. And finally, I couldn't stay long. I said, Pop, what's the idea of that 8 o'clock business? He says, Amos and Andy. That was my dad.
Now, was that the first time you ever sang that song, about Taylor? I heard you sing it.
That was in
show.
Wonder Bar, yeah.
Yeah, I heard
You
you
mean the
sing it.
Cantor on the Sabbath, yeah.
Yeah.
What songs do you want to sing, Al?
Songs? I don't think Harry knows anymore, to tell you the truth, except I'd like to if I could sing a lullaby to put these people in all these towns to sleep. But I could sing a Mammy if you want to hear me sing
Love to
Mammy.
hear Mammy.
Or you want me to sing You Made Me Love You.
I'd like to hear that. The two of them, I'd like to hear 8:45.
Well, I don't think Harry knows all those songs. You see, Harry is he can't play 9:15, 20 after 4, he says. But I tell you, Harry, you play You Made Me Love You nice and soft, and I'll sing it real soft. All right. You made me love you. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. You made me want to. And all the time you knew it. I guess you always knew it. You made me happy sometime. You made me sad. But there was time, baby, I felt so bad. You made me sigh for I didn't want to tell you, I didn't want to tell you. I want some love, that's true. You know I do, indeed I do, yes I do.
give me what I cry for. You know you got the kind of kisses that I'd die for. You know you made me love you. You made me love you. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. You made me love you. And all the time you knew it. I guess you always knew it. You made me happy sometime. Oh, you made me glad. But there were times, baby. Oh, you dog. You made me cry for. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to tell you. I want some love. That's true. You know I do. Indeed I do. Yes, I do. Gimme, 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 gimme what I cry for. You know you got the kind of kisses that I'd die for. You know you made me love you.
You know, just as you ended on that last note and you hit the Dixie cup on the table,
Yeah.
we took the picture.
Yeah.
So it's going to come out at Dixie cups are underwritten by Al Jolson.
How do you like
You
that?
just did a testimonial.
I'd like to get it.
I know an interesting thing about Berle, the time he was at the riot to the White House.
Yeah.
Sitting there with the Whitneys. You tell this in Big Boy. Sitting there with the Whitneys and the Vanderbilts. Of course, you had to sing a few songs, she said.
Mm-hmm.
But as well as the president knew you. I
Yeah.
forgot what it was you had for breakfast.
What was it? Oh, I said, as well as the president knew me. He said, I said he had to have ham there. I didn't know. That was, I think, a joke, something like that. And then also, I remember Mrs. Coolidge, she had a collie, a white collie dog. And I said to her, I said, isn't that wonderful? That dog's never seen me before. I did it with a little dialect, you know. I said, how he loves me. Keeps kissing my hand all the time. She said, Al, if he used a napkin, he wouldn't do it. That's, I mean, show you. Oh, those jokes.
Mrs. Coolidge.
Mrs. Coolidge, yeah, I knew Mr. and Mrs. Coolidge, President Coolidge, President Harding, his wife, very well, and President Wilson, his wife, very well. I met President Roosevelt in Washington House. I met him in New York when he was, I think, fire commissioner, many, many years ago. And I knew the kids, Elliot and Frank, Jimmy, knew all of them.
Well, Elliot's on this network now. Elliot does a radio show.
Yeah?
Yeah, every
But not in the middle of the night.
No, well, it's practically the same. You know, they got breakfast shows now. Husbands and wives get together.
Yeah, I know.
They
James
have
Falkenberg and her wife. Yeah, she used to be my show. She
it's on
woke
another
me up
network
7 o'clock in the morning, asked me to come on.
with Tex McCrary.
Yeah, I
did
guess so.
did you go?
Well, there's a certain amount of chivalry, you know, when you come from the South that you can't refuse. Southern part of Russia, I know all those jokes.
Well, you lived in Baltimore a long time, or was it
No,
Washington?
not in Baltimore. I lived in Washington a great deal at the time. I have a brother there now who owns a drugstore. You ought to hear him talk. I had a song one time called "You'll Hear Me Calling You," and he wanted to be an actor. He wanted to sing a song in the gallery. He said, "Why can't I sing that song in the gallery, brother Issa?" I said, "What song?" He says, "You know, Yo-Ho." That's near the Yoo-Hoo he could come. Yo-Ho.
He actually has a
Yo,
southern
even
accent.
today, yes. He laughs at anything I say. My best audience. I send money home regular.
You live in California now permanently. That's your...
Well, I don't know. I don't know, Barry. I say I live in California permanently. No, I don't think I could really say that. I bought a home, not one of those homes that you read about in California. We have 2 little bedrooms, the whole house, my wife and I, but we have got a cute little place. Little cottage at Palm Springs that I bought that I don't think I'll ever give up. But I'm daffy about Florida. I go there every year regardless. I spend a month or 2. I like the ocean, and I like New York for a certain length of time. The buildings kind of close in on me here. You know, you're used to those open spaces, and here you take a walk once in a while down Madison Avenue, down Park, down Fifth. You don't get over Broadway as much as you used to, but in California, in Beverly Hills, you don't walk at all, because if you do, a policeman thinks you're a vagrant. Everybody there has 11-cylinder cars, you know, with butlers and footmen and whatnot, and swimming pool with zippers on them. I don't know. A little far-fetched.
How about the overseas thing? Of course, that was the reason for the what's the word I'm looking for? The real reason for the dinner they gave you the other night at the Astor Hotel.
Well, the overseas thing, I tell you, I got a terrific boot out of it. I was all done such great jobs, but I happened to be the first one, and they figured a guy my age could do it, they would do it too. But I was the guinea pig. If Jolson didn't get killed, you know.
Yeah.
Hope and Benny and all of them, they did all a magnificent job. But I was over in the Aleutians, first one, and then I was over in England, the first one. And when I got to in England, I asked General Eisenhower, I said, well, I played every place else. Why don't you send me back? And he said, what do you want to go back for? I said, well, I played every place. And I said, I want to see the World Series. It was around October, so he sent me back. And then a year later, I was over in Algiers. And I guess it can be told now, ordinarily couldn't. I was here in New York, getting ready to go overseas to China, India, wherever it was, and you got your papers, but you didn't open them, till you got on the plane to go over. I don't mean on the plane here, but a plane out of Miami to go to Natal, and then to Dakar, and Karachi, India, and so on. So while I was here one day, my phone rang, and Mrs. Eisenhower was on the phone. She says, you're going over, will you give my best to the general? And I said, this is a good time to get in with the general. I said, what do you want me to say to him? And she started telling me. I said, wait a minute, I'll get a pencil and I'll write it down on a piece of paper. So I did. And the note was something like this. Dear Dwight or Ike, I forget which it was. It says, Al will give you this note and he'll give you a big kiss of me, and he'll give you a swift kick, too, for not writing more often, and so on. And Johnny was home just a few weeks ago, and he had a birthday, and he feels fine. And a little note to that effect. Well, anyway, when we got on the plane, Harry Axe and I, out of Miami, and we were flying over the Devil's Island, the French Guiana, and I opened these orders, and it said, Karachi, India, into China. So I said to one of these paratroopers that we had on board, I said, do you know I've got to go to China? He says, you must be nuts. He says, you'll die there. He says, all you can get is fish heads and rice. Well, I happened to think of that letter I had in my pocket. So when we got to Dakar, Africa, I took it out and showed it to a general. I said, does that mean anything? He says, that means that you've got to go to headquarters in Algiers. So we went from there to Marrakech and then to Casablanca where we worked, from Casablanca to Oran, and Oran down to Algiers, and I had a tough time, but I walked in on headquarters, and I met Harry Butcher, who was his aide. And he says, what are you doing here? I'd known him from England, the year before. And I said, I just come to tell you, I said, that your wife has moved out of the Wardman Park Hotel. She doesn't live in the same apartment with Mrs. Eisenhower anymore. He said, well, what are you really doing here, Al, after he left? And I says, I came here to see the general. He said, well, you can't go in to see him now. He's got a kid in there, a young kid by the name of General Giroux. Well, out came a guy with more. You never saw so many medals in your life. And then came another general. And he said, hello, Al. And I said, how do you do, sir? He said, don't you remember my name? I said, sure. General Spatz. He said, Al, please pronounce my name correctly. It's Spatz. I said, well, when I get back, I said, and I buy some spam, I'm going to change the spelling of it, call it spam. And we just clowned along like that. And I said, I've got to go and see the general. Well, a few minutes later, I was ushered in to see General Eisenhower. And he seemed to have, he's had a little accident with his left or right foot, I forget, and he wore a carpet slipper. And he said, what's the matter? You want to go see the World Series again? I said, no, not right now, but I have a little note from you, from your wife. And he read it, and he said, that kiss that she sends me, you can, when you go back to America, you can give it back again. I said, but there's something else in there. He said, something about a big kick. Well, when you're in front of greatness, I'm a little nervous even telling this. You're kind of awed quite a bit. But he stooped over, and I, with my bare hand, I slapped him across the fedora, and it did very well. But, and then we stayed there quite a while, Harry and I. And I came back from that trip, and I got pneumonia and malaria. And then I went over again, and I picked up something in Sicily. I don't know what it was, a bug, and it settled in my lung, and they cut out a couple of ribs. They called it an empyema with an abscess of the lung. That was a year ago, December. And I looked for a while that I wasn't going to live, but in fact, I feel better now than I ever have. I mean, really in the last 20 years.
You sing great, too.
Well, maybe I'm a one-long singer. I don't know. I don't like to sing.
What'd you think of the dinner that night?
Well, funny thing. I don't know. Naturally, I was thrilled, Barry. Dinner given to a guy like me for being an outstanding entertainer for the men in service and give me a big scroll and all that. But I happen to think that for 3 years I didn't work outside of making this picture, and I didn't have a job. And I said, what did they give me this dinner for? I said, I haven't been working. They give a guy a dinner that, you know what I mean, that after you live 50-some years, you know, especially in showbiz, pictures, radio, you get ulcers. I couldn't eat so good that night. But the thrill I got with the dinner was, outside of being a great thrill for many reasons, but my wife was seated there and she'd never, well, she didn't know what I mean. She knew me, never knew I was on the stage. I did real well and never even seen me in a picture.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was an X-ray technician in the hospital in Hot Springs, Arkansas, the Eastman Annex. That's where I met her. And so she used to come to the hospital and take X-ray pictures of me when I was sick. And so if I get sick again, she'll take some more pictures.
Well, when I was at the dinner, Al, and I confess, I wrapped the dinner because when I came back, well, I went to the dinner, I was thrilled, you know. I was going to see a lot of the people that had worked with Jolson. I was going to see Jolson. I was going to hear some stories, nostalgic stories that were going to give me some great material, and for my own amazement, I was going to hear the story of Jolson. This was going to be the biggest thing that had ever happened. And I walked into the Astor Hotel, and it looked like a millinery model show. Everybody was sitting there with the big hats, and they were sitting around at tables. They're about 30 feet apart. I didn't know anybody. Nobody knew anybody else. And the guys that were very much wrapped up in the saga of Jolson were strangely missing. A lot of your friends were there. But when I heard the radio show, it's true that Jessel belonged on the show, and I've heard the history of Jessel and Jolson and everything. It's true that Jessel belonged there, and there were a couple other guys that definitely belonged in there. But actually, as the show went on, I stopped to think, now Sinatra is a very nice guy. He's a wonderful guy. And Perry Como's a very nice guy. And Hildegard can't sing, but she's pretty to look at. But why this on the Jolson dedicatory broadcast? You know, where were the guys, the Joe Laurie, for example? I mean, that would be a good guy to tell the story of Jolson. A lot of the fellas that had come up along Broadway with you at the same time.
Well, I can answer that in a way. Sidney Skalski, you know, is a columnist, and he was a producer of this picture. And he was a fine fellow and all that. And he got, you know, picture business and show business and radio. It all is kind of kin, and they well, it's all publicity, and I guess there was a lot of publicity in conjunction with this picture, too.
Yeah.
And Skalski got all these people going. In fact, one fellow who didn't go on felt very hurt. He wrote me, and when I met him in Los Angeles, he said, why wasn't I asked? Well, they just didn't ask him. They forgot Jack Benny.
Yeah.
You know, it was great of Bob Hope to do it. It was great of Hildegard to do it and all that. But as I say, it was a little publicity, you know.
Yeah. It didn't seem right to me. And as I say, I came back and I reviewed the thing and talked about it, and it made me feel bad because it didn't have the dignity. That's the word. It didn't have the dignity that a dinner of that type deserved. Nobody went to eat, and yet everybody ate good, and they burped a couple of times. When it came time for the big festivities, there were no festivities.
Well, $12.50 a piece they paid to eat, and dinners in New York of that type, they want to get their money's worth. And I know I heard some people say afterwards that the show wasn't so good. So you get the idea they didn't come to pay homage to a man. But I felt about it in much the same way, but I did get a terrific kick out of it because I felt like this. Who was I to have Bob Hope get up and say that there's a little Jolson in all of this, and, you know, and so on.
Yeah. It happens to be true, though.
Yeah, well,
I can say that. It happens to be true, Al, because you've led the industry for years, and it's true. You go out to see performers today that this guy's got a little trick and that guy's got a little trick, but you put them all together and there's only one Jolson. And I'm not buttering you on one side and down the other, Al, because I've said these things when you weren't here.
No, but the only thing you're doing is saying this, and you're only going to get me to come back here and do this over again. I'll learn some new songs next time.
We haven't heard all the old ones.
Well,
yet.
I'll sing one old one here now if I'll get back to piano. I'd like to kind of finish with Mammy, if you don't mind.
And can I just... Oh, I'll wait for the station identification. You go ahead.
Everything seems lovely when you start to roam. The birds are singing the day that you stray. But wait until you are further away. Things won't be so lovely when you're all alone. Here's what you'll keep saying when you're far from home. Mammy, Mammy, The sun shines east, the sun shines west. I know where the sun shines best. Mammy, my little mammy, my heartstrings are tangled around Alabama. I'm a-coming, sorry that I made you wait. I'm a-coming, hope and trust that I'm not late. Oh, Mammy, my little mammy, I'd walk a million miles for one of your smiles, my mammy. Oh, mammy, my little mammy. The sun shines east, the sun shines west. I know where the sun shines best. It's on my mammy I'm talking about. Nobody else's, my mammy. My heartstrings are tangled around Alabama. Mammy, mammy, I'm coming. Oh, if I didn't make you wait. Mammy, I'm coming. Oh, God, I hope I'm not late. Mammy, look at me. Don't you know me? I'm your little baby. I'd walk a million miles for one of your smiles, my mammy.
Al, I know you're tired.
Report
You're
tomorrow
tired?
on the stage at the Capitol Theater with me, please.
Yeah, report at Radio City Music Hall and get in.
I'd like to get in.
You know, it's a funny thing.
What?
I don't know whether you're serious or not, Al, but there was a gal up here about 3 weeks ago, a lady by the name of Fanny Hurst. Lady by the name of Fanny Hurst that said something about wanting to bang down the doors of radio. And there's another lady who's had a very illustrious career, big name in literature and everything. Next day she got a call from another network, and last Thursday night she went on her own show on another network competing with Mutual and WOR.
Well, Barry, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not what you call looking for a job. It's just the feeling that I'd like to have my doors broken down, even by one guy, to say, oh, we want that guy Jolson on because he's really good. We'd like to have him on, and so forth and so on.
Al, when I was on the coast, may I interrupt?
Yeah.
I was sitting on the beach, and you got a call from the Kraft Music Hall, if I remember then.
Yeah.
And they wanted you to go on. They wanted you to go on the air for them. And you were very hesitant at the time. I don't know why.
Well, I'll tell you why I was hesitant. I want to do a show.
The way you want to do it.
Well, no, not exactly. I don't want to be the guy to say, I'll only do it, this, that must be my way. That isn't true. I just don't want to go on and do a show with those bad jokes
You
anymore.
want to be natural.
That's right. As natural as
That's the
I
way
can
it should
be.
How about the Shell show?
That was all right, but that was a comedy show. That's had its day. Most of those comedy shows have really had their day.
Yeah.
I really don't think there's been, in the last 5 years, much improvement in radio. I think it's been very stale. Really, I do. I mean, when you get a fella on now that, what's this fella, Morgan, that's on now?
Yeah.
You go nuts. You love it. Something different.
He's terrific.
I mean, really, years ago, before the war, I used to wait 6:15 at night around that time with a guy go on and say, yes, sir, so-and-so shoes. Well, I don't know. They may be good, but I've never worn the shoes and so forth and so on. But it's kidded. But here you've got to go out and say how good the product is. Well, I remember I was on a show one time. What was it? Yes, Lifebuoy soap. And I said, I want you folks to know how good Lifebuoy soap is. I said, it's really a great soap. I said, for instance, if you have some silver home, if you have some, it was a toothpaste I was on. This was another time, toothpaste. I think it was Colgate toothpaste, yeah. I said, I want to show you folks how good this toothpaste is. This was before the show, the warm-up of the audience. And I said, it's so good. If you have some silver home and it's tarnished and dirty, you take, I said, one little teeny-weeny piece of toothpaste. You put it on the silver, rub it for a couple of minutes. I said, then take a cloth and rub it off. And I said, the silver will be as good as new, which will give you a rough idea what it'll do to your teeth. Well, it was just in clowning, you understand. That night they asked me, they said, where do you think you'll play next week? And I said, I don't know, but I think I'll be in the valley living home. And I did. They said, so long, Joe. What this fellow Morgan, it's very cute,
Yeah.
And then I had Barrymore, John Barrymore. He was on the program one time, and he did a soliloquy from Hamlet. And the big thing in Lifebuoy is be old.
Yeah.
You know, B.O. So I had John Barrymore do the soliloquy. He said, to B.O. or not to B.O., that is a question. And they asked me to leave that show, too.
Well, I don't get it. I think
Well,
that's
no sense of humor. Most
I think that's
sponsors have no sense of humor.
I think it's a terrific plug. No, on the contrary, I've got some sponsors that look at
Well,
this
yeah,
morning
sure.
now. I've got I've got 4 sponsors, and the 4 of them tell me when we've got guests, forget the commercials, and I do a little thing. I get on and I say I want to thank my sponsors for not taking too much of my time this morning, and they
You
like
have
it.
guys that understand you. That's the
They
only
do
difference.
business.
Well, I think it may be coming to that. But I don't want to... If a sponsor said to me, Al, don't kid the product, I wouldn't kid the product. But I'd like to go on. I'd like to sing nice songs, say nice things. I'd like to say, I remember this song.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Rector's in 1907, or 10, or whenever it was, and across from me sat a very beautiful girl, Little Lorraine. She had just come from the Ziegfeld Theater where I'd sat in the 4th row, and I heard her sing. Now, there's nothing wrong about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the type of show I'd like to do. I heard Faith Templeton, and tell a little story about how I learned Rosy on my posy, and what have you.
I think
Well,
somebody's going to buy that tonight.
We don't have a really big singing star on this network for my dough. A lot of guys are going to argue with me, but I don't want to get into any inter-office memos. But we got a guy listening right now, right this minute, who sits up all night and grabs me, buttonholes me in the hall in the daytime when I come in. I come in about once a week, grab the check and run. And he grabs me and he says, "You keep me up nights with those people that come in." A fellow by the name of Sylvan Levin, who's the musical director of Mutual. And I'll bet you get a call from the guy tomorrow because he'll probably call up and offer big money. Don't grab it. They always get bigger after the third
No,
offer.
let me tell you something. That's
No.
not exactly what I'm interested in. It isn't money. I'd like to do a show, and the pride of it, by having a big Crosley and have a big listening audience, and that would be a big hit for me to say, oh, I'm doing as good as so-and-so, and I'm doing as good as so-and-so, you know? But just honestly, believe me when I tell you, the money's secondary. You can't keep a great deal of
Yeah.
it, you know, with the tax situation as it is, so it doesn't matter.
Can I tell you something, Al? This is
Yeah.
from a radio guy, and my racket is radio. And Crosley's I don't think mean anything.
It does to those cuckoos.
I know it does, but Crosley's don't mean anything. What counts to me is you can feel it when a show's being listened to. When you walk down Broadway and a hack driver knows who you are, or a hack driver stops you and says, I heard your show last night. 3 guys in front of Lindy's say, I heard your show last night. You get a letter from a gal in West Virginia who wants your picture. You get a letter from a guy in Des Moines, Iowa who wants to break your neck because you don't like Vaughn Monroe. Things like that. Then you know the show's being listened to. Funny thing about Crosley's, they get shows, terrific shows. Come up with a Crosley of 4 and 5, and everybody listens to them, but they can only prove a Crosley 4. And other shows that nobody listens to has a Crosley of 20.
You mean that's on account of the phoning-in system?
Yeah, a lot of people don't have telephones. I mean, now this is a guy on radio saying this. It's a very brash statement to make, but that's the way I feel. I don't think there's any true way of proving an audience. The only true way is who buys it on the counter is whatever you're selling.
Jolie,
What?
I've been on the air with Crosby for 4.5 years, and I came back to New York figuring everybody's going to say, here's a kid that was up in the mountains. Gee, I heard you on the air with Crosby. But no, the first night I get here, I happened to be on with Barry. And so when I went around the street to make my appearance, you think they said anything about Crosby? He says, heard you last night with Barry Gray. You were great. Never mentioned a thing that I was on 4 years with Crosby. Forgot about it.
Well, you see, Crosby's such a big name, you know. It's a peculiar thing. You know, you come to a station like this and you get a lot of recognition because where could a person speak, as I say, without, say, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour without having a script in front of them and talk wrong? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember Dizzy Dean was on time with me and James A. Jeffries was one time on with me. And Jeffries had a script in his hand. I said, Jim, I said, tell me about the greatest fight you ever fought. And he looked at the script and he said, well, the greatest fight I ever fought was one fight I fought with Tom Sharkey. Then I had a broken rib when I fought with Rulin. And I grabbed the script out of his hand. I said, tell me again the greatest fight you ever had. He said, well, one time I fought Jack Johnson. He said, in Reno, Nevada. I'll never forget. I wasn't in shape. And went right on wonderful. You know, I'd lived. It was great.
Well, we don't have a Crosley on. I didn't say that. I didn't say that to bring out what you said. We don't have a Crosley on the show because they don't have Crosleys after midnight. But we know that there's that many people listening because we know well, when this thing started, you couldn't sell a guy on the fact, put a spot on the show. They'd say, who listens at night? Arnold Rubin gave me a famous line one night. I met him once about 1.5 years ago, and Alan Corelli of the AGVA introduced us and said, I want you to meet this kid that works at night and talks about your restaurant every once in a while. He looked at me and says, who listens? Well, I never forgot that. I never forgot it because it was a poke in the puss for one thing, and I knew that people listened. I knew that we had doctors and dentists and lawyers and show people and all kinds of people that sat up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. A guy can't sleep, you know. Insomnia is no respecter of position. Just because a guy's got money, as a matter of fact, the richer they are, the less they can sleep.
Oh, yes, I haven't slept for days.
And I sleep, Al. And it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing that, as Yuki has pointed out, we get from our mail. We get fellas that live on Park Avenue. We get guys that live on Orchard Street. Well, anyway, enough of that. I'll bet you get offers this week.
Well, I'm going to leave town about Wednesday or Thursday and go home because my wife asked me not just, honey, when you're leaving. I've only been here 2 days. I got here Friday, and this is only Saturday. And today I saw a football game, and if I'm going to get up tomorrow, Barrett, to see the Giants play the Bears, I'll have to be leaving soon. And I want to tell you this has been, well, believe me, I want to tell you this has been a bigger kick in my dinner. I'm going to get Hail Columbia for saying that. But I got a chance to say a few words here tonight that I wanted to get off my chest. I got a chance. The Ham and me came out to sing a zillion songs. I had my picture snapped. I saw where Mutual was put on the thing, WR was put on the thing.
Yeah.
And I've had a few people here that I know personally and socially for a great many years, and well, it's been swell.
Can we have one more song?
I don't know what to sing. I haven't got the slightest
Can
idea.
I ask you to do Rosy again?
Rosie again? Harry, just play. I'll sing one chorus of Rosie.
One
chorus of Rosie,
I'd love
because the second chorus is a hard chorus. And I haven't, the pipes, I must have sung 12 or 13 songs.
Before?
Harry, one chorus of Rosie, but just and make the first ending finish, you know. Rosie, you are my posy. You are my heart's bouquet. Come out here in the moonlight. There's something sweet, love, I want to say. Your honey boy, I'm waiting. Those ruby lips to greet. Don't be so aggravating, my blushing Rosie, my posy sweet. Rosie, you are my posy. You are my heart bouquet. Come out here in the moonlight. There's something sweet, love. I'm gonna sing about my baby. Your honey boy, I'm waiting. Those ruby lips to breathe. I'm gonna leave now, 'cause I'm getting sleepy. To kiss my Rosie, my posy sweet. Good night.
Al, before you go, the first of the wires have begun to come in, started to come in, the first of the wires, and one of them says, Dear Al, please include California, Here I Come, in the numbers you're going to do over the air. Certainly I'm glad to hear your voice again, best of luck. I'm recording your interview. This is your old friend of the past, Matt Glazer's right-hand man of the George Borger Vocal Letter Recording Company. That's a sure plug. The most thrilling and enjoyable evening I've ever spent in the theater was at the music hall listening to Al's songs, and from now on I shall always treasure the pleasure I receive from accidentally tuning in a great guy paying his respect to regular fellas. Thanks, Arthur Jarwood. You'll get, I promise you, hundreds of these, Al, believe me. And I want to thank personally, not only yourself, Al, but I want to thank Leo Lindy, who incidentally is the godfather of my Melody Ann. You know, we had an audition a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to thank Leo for bringing you up here this morning because although I'm sure you could have found a way, it makes it much easier to have the guiding light of Broadway. I have no way of thanking you, Al, for coming up this morning. It's to me, the high spot of 22 months of broadcasting at night.
Don't thank me, because there's more ways than making, whipping a guy to make him cry, and I haven't forgotten how. There's a little lump in my throat, and I want to go home and swallow it.
Thank you very much, Al Jolson. And now with the traditional 3 words, play the music.
Hello, everyone. It's really Friday afternoon in New York. And because of traveling commitments, I've invited as my guest this afternoon Mr. Victor Moore. Well, Mr. Victor Moore is right. Let's start over. You caught me unawares. Tell him to start cutting again. Tell him to start cutting again. He says, okay, you're coming through fine. Hello, everyone. This is Barry Gray on Friday afternoon, and because of the traveling commitments of our guest star at the moment, we've had to transcribe this so that you might hear it on the Saturday afternoon BG show. I'm going to talk with Victor Moore. No doubt you've heard him many times on the radio, on many other radio shows. You've seen him on stage. You've witnessed his great performances in motion pictures, and I think probably the most pathetic character you've ever seen. And here he is, our star, Victor Moore.
Well, here I am.
I'm supposed to ask the first question.
Well,
This is a new racket for me, Victor. I've been off the air for about 4 days. As you can see, I'm in sort of a...
I've been out of pictures for 4 months, so we're all starting even. Anyway.
You have just premiered a new motion picture called It Happened on Fifth Avenue.
That's right.
And this actually makes how many motion pictures that you've made?
I couldn't count them, because I go way back to the silent days. And I made 41 one-reel comedies many years ago called Clever Comedies, spelled with a K. I did 5 features for Lasky during the silent days and 2 for Universal and 2 at Paramount when they had a studio in Astoria. Then I had a 6-year deal with Paramount and a 4-year deal with RKO, during which time I did a great many, both silent and talking pictures.
Of course, if I may say, I think your greatest success was on stage here in New York.
Well, everything that I did on the stage had been written to my order. All but the last 2 shows, which weren't written for us, Billy Gaxton and myself did Hollywood Pinafore, written by George Kaufman, and then that was followed by Nellie Bly, which were written by the 2 authors that had given us our biggest hit, Of the I Sing. And individually, they gave us our only 2 flops that we had during 18 years of association together.
What was the beginning of the association?
That was an Of the I Sing. Billy Gaxton had gone to Palm Beach, where Sam Harris sponsored a show for some charity down there, and during the time that he was there, he was given a synopsis of the I Sing to read. And he was so pleased with it that he said, I hope I can do this performance. But he says the only man to get for the vice president would be Victor Moore. And when I read the script, I said, I think it's marvelous, but I would like to see Billy Gaxton play the president. We had never been associated together. We knew each other very well from being together in the Lambs Club and various benefits that we were on together, but we never performed together. So that's how it came about that we were both president and vice president in Of the I Sing.
That was the show in which the famous Wintergreen for President came to life.
Alexander Throttlebottom was vice president.
That was your title.
Yes.
I noticed in the last couple of days, I just happened to see a magazine story about you and a duck.
Oh, yes.
What's the story of the duck?
Well, the duck was, my wife gave it to our mother, a little ball of yellow fluff on Easter Sunday. And we bought it at a pet shop. And it was a cute little thing, and used to follow us around the patio down towards the pool and would look in, but never attempted to get it into the pool. And at last we put it up on the diving board, and it looked down at the pool and said, that looks like water, and me being a duck, I should be in the water. So off he went. He jumped right into the pool about 3.5 feet from the diving board.
May I compliment you incidentally on your figure in a swimsuit? You look really grand.
Yes, I've had many compliments on that.
How do you feel about the type of work you're definitely typed for in pictures and on the stage?
Well, I've been a vice president, an ambassador to Russia, and a United States senator, and a public enemy. Now I've turned out to be a bum. It's sort of a lovable kind of a bum, a philosophical tramp who lives in millionaires' homes during the time they're closed up in the winter on Fifth Avenue. And for 3 years, I have been in this same house. The 2 previous years, I had no trouble, and what I ate was never missed, and the owner's clothes fitted me perfectly, and I was quite a man about town. And this special year in which it happened on Fifth Avenue takes place, I pick up a GI in the park who has no place to live, and I take him home, and he in turn brings into the house 2 other GIs, pals of his, who have wives and children. So soon we interrupt the owner's daughter, who has run away from boarding school and comes into our own house to get some clothing and a mink coat. We catch her trying to get into our own room, and we think that she's a thief, and we're going to call the police. That is, the GI wants to do it, but I wouldn't let him. And I'll tell you the whole part of the story. We eventually get the owner of the house and his wife, who have been separated for 4 years, into the house as the cook, and we pick the owner up as a tramp in the park. The daughter has made him promise not to say anything on account of the boy that she's fallen in love with, that I took into the house. And
it's getting involved. How many people do you have in the house now?
Well, there gets to be about 10 or 12 altogether. But I never know who any of them are till the end, not even to the end of the picture. I leave and go down to this man's winter home down south, in which I live in the summertime, when he comes back to his summer home in New York.
I hear that you're, if you'll excuse the interruption, I hear that you're quite a real estate magnate in true life also.
Well, I have a bus terminal in Jackson Heights in Elmhurst that I bought the property quite a number of years ago. I think it was at the time that the Queensboro Bridge was being constructed. It hadn't been finished when I bought the property. And later I put some taxpayers on it, and today it is a 2-story bus terminal with 3 floors, an arcade on the subway entrance and another one on the street floor, and offices in the upper floor of the building. I had to purchase from Queensboro 2 adjoining plots on each corner. One had a building on it, the other was vacant, and the vacant property is where the buses come into, which unload all of the passengers from anywhere around in Queens to the platform of the terminal.
It's unfortunate that the bus can't stop in the 2-room house.
Formerly they deposited their passengers on the street, and I thought in bad weather, when it was snowing or raining, they would rather go from a covered portion of the building into the subway.
You say formerly they deposited them on the street. You're very, very lucky, actually, to have this bus terminal in Jackson Heights, because here in Times Square they leave them on the street in many cases. Victor, if I may be so familiar, you actually live in Hollywood.
Yes, I've now have the 3rd house that I bought out there. I sold a house that I had about a year ago to Claire Trevor. And now I bought Spike Jones's house. And it has a pool, and it's on a very lovely street in Beverly Hills.
Probably have trumpet players in the closet.
And we had to clear out quite a lot of Spike Jones's props, which were very funny. Washboards, and there was a body up in the garage that with
body in the garage?
One leg hanging down.
That's Orrin Tucker.
At last, At last we found the body.
Have you invested in any of the motion pictures that you've made?
No. I had one managerial experience in Newark in a stock company a good many years ago. At the end of 2 weeks, the hottest 2 weeks in June, I had $17.10 pro rata to split up with all the actors. And that has spoiled me, I guess, from ever investing money in a show. You can lose a great deal of money in a show, and you can make a great deal of money, but it's too much of a gamble.
How do you feel about the trend that show business has taken these last couple of months?
Well, I'm sore as the devil because business is so good. And during the war years and since, Billy Gaxton and I have had an association of 17 or 18 years, and having had a great many hits on Broadway, can't seem to find a show. We've tried, had 3 of them written for us, which they didn't develop to our satisfaction. And so it's been rather tough to see all the business that shows are doing in New York, that we couldn't be in on it. So I said, I'm going to California and do a picture when and if I want to do one. And I've got a terrible lot of fishing to do. And the fishing is pretty good out at the coast. I've lately had 3 trips, one at Lake Mead, another at Lake Henshaw, and the last trip was up in the high Sierras where there's plenty of snow still there.
Is there a life ambition that you haven't realized?
Well, I hope to come back to New York someday in a play that I will be satisfied to come back with. Frank Bacon waited a great many years for lightning to strike him, and I'm now waiting for my lightning. If it ever comes along, I would willingly and gladly come back to New York because New York has been very good to me. And I would like to come back with a proper play, which I hope to someday. I'm only 71 years young now, and before I'm 95, I hope to have that play.
Do you expect to live to 95?
Well,
from the looks of things here, I would say 195.
Well, not quite that long, but I do want to try to keep on making people laugh till the last day I'm alive. It's been my greatest pleasure to work. I'm happiest when I'm working, although I do like to go fishing in between time.
What do you, when I asked you about the trend of show business, Victor, what I really meant was, what do you think of the trend of, during the war, we had crooners suddenly come to fame with one record, and bands spring up from out of nowhere with a crazy sort of thing, and make the kind of money that was unheard of in show business, say 20 years ago.
Well, there are cycles, and I think the tap dancing seems to have disappeared from the stage in New York, and everything is ballet today. I think that will eventually change again, and they'll come back to the old-time musical comedies where they did have a tap dancer or two. I think people still enjoy them. Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire are still in pictures and doing tap dancing, but they have to conceive very wonderful routines in order to still do tap dancing.
When you're relaxing, what do you enjoy doing most besides the fishing? What about your entertainment likes on your own hook?
Well, I take
prefer?
a busman's holiday and go to the theater or go to pictures. I'm still entertained with the things that are well done. I don't go to all the pictures that come out. That would be impossible. I'd have to go twice a day. I do like to see the better ones, and I wait till somebody says, you must see this picture or that one. And then I go and enjoy them.
What's the best picture you've seen in, we'll say, the last year?
Well, I've seen several. I think that Song of Bernadette was one of the best pictures I've ever seen. I saw that twice in 1 week and enjoyed it equally as much. It happened on Fifth Avenue. I think it's one of the best pictures that's been produced in a long time in Hollywood.
That stars Victor Moore.
No, it doesn't star. It has 5 stars, in fact. And I consider one of the best parts that I've ever had in pictures. I did a picture years ago called Make Way for Tomorrow that I liked awfully well, that Leo McCarey did. And he still says, in spite of all the other things he's done, that Make Way for Tomorrow is the best picture that he has ever done. I'm very anxious to do another picture with him because he's such a sweetheart to work with. We never knew when it was lunchtime, and never cared, and never knew what time we were quitting. We just were willing to keep on and on with a guy like Leo McCarey.
Well, I'll tell you, after today's 20 minutes or 21 minutes that we've done here, I'm quite sure that you'll probably be offered as your next spot a job as a disc jockey. You think you'd like that?
Well, I don't know. I listen to them occasionally. I wonder how they keep awake, especially at night. Very seldom I'm out very late at night, but I listen to them on the radio in the car a great many times when I'm on a fishing trip and start out early.
One of those guys that'll pick up a record and say, well, look who we have here, Benny Goodman. What are you going to play, Benny? Talk to themselves all night. I've heard all the West Coast disc jockeys, and may I say that I'm very happy to have you here in New York.
Well, I'm sorry I'm not staying longer than I am, and still I do want to get back home. I can sit out in my patio, as we call it out there. It's really the backyard. You never see anybody on the front steps in Beverly Hills. They all sit out in back of the house, either around the swimming pool or on the terraces.
I was just going to say, because most of them don't own a coat that matches the pants, so they have to stay in the backyard.
Well, they don't like to be seen, and you never see anybody walking about there. They're either driving, and even if you're standing in front of your own house, a policeman comes along and wants to know what you're doing there. So you never know when you're safe, even in your own backyard.
Tell me, my home is actually Los Angeles from way back, but I haven't been home in about 4 or 5 years. Have things changed much in the last 4 or 5 years?
Yes, there's been over 1 million people coming to that area since the war. In Pearl Harbor, I think there's 1 million, almost 500,000. Of course, a great many were defense workers. I know the boys who have gotten out of the service that went to the Pacific, that I used to ride up and down when I was going back and forth to work, doing pictures, all said that when the war was over, they were coming to California to live, and I guess most of them did. Because the housing problem out there is getting worse and worse instead of better. And there are a great many building projects going on now, but many of them stop after they get so far for lack of materials. And I think when things straighten out, it will have the greatest growth of any community there is in the United States during the next 10 years.
Well, that's been voiced by many, many people. Are there any questions that I've forgotten to ask? Any pet projects you particularly want to talk about?
No, principally about Make Way for
Tomorrow was the last interview with Arthur Godfrey.
No, but Roy Delroot's performance and his associate producer, Joe Kaufman, have done a wonderful job in producing It Happened on Fifth Avenue. It's a clean, wholesome entertainment for the entire family, and I very heartily recommend it. I think it's about the best part that I have ever had in pictures.
Now, all that's left for me to say is thank you, Victor Moore, and I'll be looking for you at the Rivoli Theater here in New York, on screen. Please bring money. Thank you very much. I mean it sincerely, and I'm quite sure that the people listening are enjoying it just as much because it was transcribed as if we were sitting here tomorrow instead of today. You know, one of those things. A Saturday, you will be on a train, I understand, going home.
I'll be in a plane, the Constellation, tomorrow night, and arrive in time for breakfast. I've just wired that I'll be breakfast. We have a very wonderful Filipino cook, and he does cook up a lot of wonderful things. I'm very anxious to get back and have his breakfast.
Well, just one tip, Victor. Just one tip. If you, upon arriving in Beverly Hills, you find that breakfast consists of roast duck, you'll know that you have the swimming pool all to yourself. Thank you for being here, Victor Moore.
Thank you.
WOR-FM, New York.
Good evening, everyone. This is Barry Gray speaking to you from the studios of WOR in New York. This is the Friday night show of 25 minutes of conversation with people that I ask to gather at the microphones, and we discuss a variety of things, sometimes show business, sometimes political things and discussions and so on. And tonight I have as my guests Mr. Canada Lee, recently played a starring position in the motion picture Lost Boundaries, which is currently playing the circuits of the nation, and a professional music man of many years standing, Mr. Mac Clark. I think probably we can get right to it by asking Canada Lee, who has been accused of being many, many things, the reason why. Canada?
Well, I'm sort of at a loss to say, Barry. I'm an actor who wants to make $1 million. I think I've probably been accused of trying to make $1 million. But unfortunately, or fortunately as the case may be, I say unfortunately, somehow or other, things have been happening which makes me sort of wonder about everything in this respect that, well, Barry, I want to act.
Yeah.
Period. And I find myself at this point unable to, due to the lack of interest in my work somehow.
Well, I saw you, as I say, in the motion picture Lost Boundaries, and I might add that I was very much shocked to see the motion picture playing in the South, and enjoyed it a great, great deal. You played the part of the police captain.
Yes, the police lieutenant.
Lieutenant, I'm sorry. I just advanced you.
Yeah.
And when I came back to New York, you see, Canada, I must admit that I've been out of New York action for a couple of years, and I have been away from the political scenery, although I read most of the New York papers. And when I came back, I found that Canada Lee had suddenly found himself attached to many, many groups of people, which were fighting various sorts of battles, and I found that there had been a tinge attached to the, or a taint attached to the name Canada Lee.
Good.
And I'm a guy that likes to call things things, and I want to ask you why.
Well,
I want to find out if we still
it.
agree politically or we disagree, and why have you done this?
All right, I must tell you about it, Barry.
Go ahead.
I haven't changed politically one bit. I'm still a liberal, not a communist by any stretch of the imagination. But it seems like during the war, Barry, when everybody was fighting and helping every organization that called on them, I appeared as much as I possibly could, and as much as it was to my advantage and every other minority and American's advantage to see that America prosecuted the war successfully. It seems like during the war period in which I was appearing for different organizations in their effort to help win the war, the organizations which I appeared for, some of them, have been called by the district attorney,
Attorney General.
Attorney
General's office.
As red-fronted organizations. And so, by association, not considering, of course, that this was during the war period, just as once a great nation was our ally, and now she isn't. And there were these organizations which was fighting for us, and which were on the right side at that point, which are now considered subversive.
I see.
And
have you become a member of any of these organizations?
I haven't even joined the Elks. As a matter of fact, I'm not a joiner. I really am not a joiner. I joined church once when I was a little kid, and I've never joined anything since.
Well, I realize, you said last Friday night, winding up a discussion with a couple of very wonderful people, Ed Weiner, who is a Broadway publicist and a very fine one, the writer of the Damon Runyon story, and Mel Allen, the very fine sportscaster. Last Friday night, I wound up the discussion by saying I was getting a little tired of worrying about whether this guy was a fascist and that fellow was a communist. I thought we ought to start living up to the Bill of Rights, the Four Freedoms, and FDR's great position a little left of center. I made it very clear that I was a firm believer in the Constitution of the United States. I've always have been. I think it's a great piece of writing by some very brilliant guys, and it should be the nation's should be on the nation's bestseller list every week of the year. And as a result, I then started talking about Franco Spain. And I said that I had no aversion to helping the people of Spain, but I certainly did not want to help a certain Mr. Franco, or General Franco. For that, I drew 2 letters this week out of the couple of hundred nice ones that arrived, in which they called me a bad fella. Here's what I'm getting at. I don't believe that we, in running away from communism, should fall freshly into the arms of fascism. I don't believe that we should go to either side of the position of center, right or left. I want to find out whether the accusations that have been pointed at you or directed your way are true or not true. If you haven't joined any organizations, why then have you been called the names?
I don't know, Barry, except that, you see, I'm one of a minority group. And just aside, if I may digress.
Digress.
If I may digress.
Pretty good word. Go ahead.
If I may digress for a moment, Barry, If you will read the Constitution now in the form it is, as it has been these many years, you'd be probably called names too, or sort of tinted. But I've been fighting for the minority peoples because in fighting for the minority peoples, I again fight for myself.
Well, let me ask you, I don't want to interrupt, Canada, but I want to keep the thing as rapid as possible. Do you really feel that baseball bats, for example, in Peekskill, do you feel that riots, do you feel that violence will settle the problem?
No, Barry, I feel very much like you do that only education and a whole process of evolution can do it. I don't think that people should carry baseball bats. I deplore very much the Peekskill incident. Regardless of what side it was on, I deplore it even more because, well, I better not go on.
Do you feel that free speech includes the
That's
right?
one of the principles of the Constitution.
Yes, it is. Free speech is the principle of the Constitution, but as one very great justice has pointed out, free speech does not mean that you can stand up in a crowded theater and yell fire.
I agree with you.
And it also means, if we may go to the Robeson situation, it also means that Paul Robeson does not have the right to stand up and speak for the overthrow of the United States government or say openly that he is in favor of another country and loves it very dearly instead of his native land. I don't believe that the rights of free speech extend that far. I would not have it that way.
That's true. I don't believe that a person, as a matter of fact, as you said, I don't believe that anybody can speak wholeheartedly for anybody else. I think, of course, I've had an opinion about this, which will take too long to go into, and I think it has to do a great deal. All of this stuff on the Robeson thing and everything else has a great deal to do with the great Negro minority, which is no more a minority, but a majority. There's also the fact that from the very inception of the average white person's birth, they are taught the fear of the Negro, either with razors, with vitality, with violence, or with something else, or just the boogerman will catch you. From
Well,
those
of
things,
course,
you see.
that is all being taken care of with education. I might add, Canada, and I want to get to Mac Clark in a second.
I didn't finish my theory, Barry.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
And this is only my theory, of course.
Yeah.
And so, consequently, the great what could happen with this great majority, which is no more a minority, I mean, of ethnic groups, if these people were unified, it would cause a great stir in America. Because the thing that has happened in America from its very inception is that the poor people, the minorities, not Negroes alone, Negroes as Negroes per se aren't important in the whole scheme of things, but the minority peoples and the poor peoples have been kept down. Now, if these peoples could get together, they would then be in a very strong position to make their own laws. This applies to the Negro group as a
I don't know. Well, you see, that's where we disagree. I don't hold with that at all.
I'm telling my... But see, Barry,
that's
you keep bothering me, Barry, and I don't finish my theory.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Let me bring you up to point. Let me bring the listener up to date, though. You have said that if the minority groups, and by minority you mean the poor people of the United States, could get together, they could then form a majority and control the legislation of the United States, right?
Yes, but this is only my... I'm
Go ahead.
disregarding now. I'm disregarding the other people. I'm using the Negro group as a reason for all the things that's been happening recently. So, here is a great group that is a minority that could be a majority with the unification of thought. Now, if anybody comes along and tried to unify these Negroes, if they could form, if it was able, which it's an absolute impossibility, but if they could, they would form a tremendous bloc, political bloc.
Yes.
Which would be tremendously important in our country, you see.
Yes.
This, if it happened, would be all contrary to how our country has...
Well, can I get in?
Yes.
Can I get in
Go ahead,
now? You see, I'm going way beyond you because I know the thought that you're trying to express.
For me because I'm so bad at driving.
No. I'm trying to get to the point. What you're stating actually is the very thing that goes against civil rights. Number one, Canada, I don't believe that the Negroes of the United States should become one group. I don't believe that.
That's what I'm saying, Barry. You see, that's what I say.
But I don't believe that the Jewish people of the United States should become one group, or the Catholics, or the Italians, or any other group. I think that we should be first and foremost Americans.
Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But what I'm trying to say, Barry, now you make me look like
a fool. I wish you'd get to because we've got about 12 minutes.
All right,
Go ahead.
Give me about 2 minutes, and I can straighten this out. And so now, if anybody came along with any sort of thought that could unify these people, everybody would become afraid, just like we've been taught all of our lives to be afraid of Negroes. See, so a guy comes along and makes some sort of speech, which if it's quoted as right. I don't believe it. It's wrong. You know, a guy can...
I don't follow you, Canada. Honestly, I don't.
I'm sorry.
Do you, Mac?
No, I don't.
I'd like to get you into the conversation.
Well, it's quite all right. I mean, you're handling exactly what I think fairly well, and so there's no necessity of my talking.
Here's what I mean. Yeah, all right. Here's what I mean, Mac. That,
Are you for, wait a second, let me get this in yeses and nos. Are you for unification of the minority groups?
No, sir. I'm for the free thinking and the American...
Of each group?
Yes,
of each group.
Not of each group, of a conglomerated group of American people.
In other words,
I don't believe in Negro, white, Jew, Catholic. I don't believe in that. We're American people.
In other words, you believe in civil rights?
Yes.
Well, that's exactly what we're getting at. Now, believing in civil rights, have you gone any further than that? Why isn't
No, I've been fighting for civil rights. The only... Oh, wait a minute, let me... Explain.
Why have people... I'm trying to get to the point.
Yes.
Why have people given you the taint of being a follower, a leftist, a fellow traveler? Why have you been given that taint?
That's because, Barry, of the many times that I've been on the forefront of the fight for equal rights. That's all I've been doing. But the organizations that I might have been with, which was during the war and until this thing started, was some of them have been, like, say, for instance, the Southern Conference for Human Welfare, which is a Negro or an organization for Negro welfare, you know, and some other organizations which have been called communist fronted, with the result that they have everybody. They had me, Miss Hayes, Miss Helen Hayes, and Mr. Frederick March. She's a very great lady, and a Republican. They called us all.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I heard the Walter Winchell broadcast of that Sunday night when he defined Helen Hayes as a rock rib Republican. Of course, it's ridiculous, but that brings up the point that I've been getting to. We are rapidly getting to the point, Canada, whether this applies to you or not, I don't know, because I haven't had enough time to discuss it with you. We are rapidly getting to the point in the United States where, rather than just open disagreement with people, for example, if you sat here and you were a Democrat and I were a Republican and we had a hassle about it, we would still be Republicans and Democrats and friends with a great respect for each other and our argumentative abilities individually after the broadcast. It has gotten to the point today where the greatest weapon that you can hold against any individual, and this works on both sides, is in disagreement to say privately about that individual, he is a communist, or he is a fascist, or he is this, or he is that. We have become a nation of race callers, or rather name callers. And it's gotten to the point where it has affected the employment of many, many people. And I'm a guy, this may come as a surprise to you, I'm a guy that would like to change the Constitution in one small way. I would like, until we get over this thing, to register all the people of all the political parties under threat of imprisonment or fine if they didn't tell the truth. I would like to know who are the Republicans, who are the Democrats, who is everyone. It sounds a little strange, but it would save the people who are being innocently branded the great difficulty that they're going through. I might add, I don't know, it may be people like yourself. It might be someone like Mac Clark, who I'm afraid disagrees with you vehemently.
Vehemently?
Go ahead, Mac.
Go ahead,
Well,
Mac.
in the first place, before I let your statement go unchallenged about this changing of the Constitution and registering
Well, it
people,
would be an amendment, actually.
or amending it in any form, I know of no way that a crook gets into a house other than posing as a friend. I mean, that's the best way. And so a communist can very well register as a Democrat.
But remember the fine.
Well, the fine is a tremendous thing to impose upon people, because then there's a tremendous lengthy litigation of one kind or another, and we never really resolve the thing. However, there's one thing I've not come here to bury Canada Lee, nor have I come here to praise him, to paraphrase Shakespeare.
I've heard of him.
The kid wrote pretty well, didn't he?
Yeah, go ahead.
Or was it Bacon? At any rate, I think that the trouble in Canada Lee's case, as it does come in a great many cases, Barry, is the fact that they align themselves with certain groups that do take orders from Russia. And I'm not mincing words. I mean, they are part of the all-over common form. And in their desire for these civil rights, which I am part and parcel of, I believe that every minority group has its place. But in their desire, in their militancy to get this thing done, they align themselves with a group that is bad for them. And
How
pretty
does
soon
the
they're
average
thinking,
actor know?
well,
Wait a
it-
second,
it-
Canada. I want to get into the act at that point. I would like to say that for 5 years I've been talking about things like this, and of this type. I have never once joined any group. I'm eligible for all of the veterans organizations. I'm eligible for many of the religious groups. I am for some of the activities of some of the organizations, and yet I will not let myself become aligned with them because the policy that holds true on Monday when I join might not be the policy on the following Friday, where they may have swung the whole electoral block in the direction of the top officers, and this goes for all of the communist-fronted groups, for all of the veterans groups, and I can go on and on and on. It works on the right and it works on the left. Therefore, I believe that the proper place for all individualistic and free-thinking American citizens is as individuals. Listen to all the arguments, join no organization, and go to the polls and vote as you see fit.
Well, that's what I've done
And
so far.
speak your
Joined
piece as
no
an individual.
organization.
I think let us bring. I want to interrupt. Stay
That's all
interrupted
right.
for a second. Let us bring in the case of Adler and Draper. Now, I don't know their political views. I have been led to believe by various news columns that they are leftist. I've had Adler and Draper on the air, the harmonica virtuoso and the dancer. I don't know, you can't tell in 15 or 20 minutes. It takes many hours of discussing many things and to find out. But I would like to say this. I think that they made a terrible error in going to the footlights of a stage, wherever they were performing, and saying, vote for Henry A. Wallace because I am for him. Therefore, if you like me, vote for the man I like. I've said this before. I think that actors have the right to stand up and say, vote on Tuesday, November the 8th, because it's every American's duty to vote, but I do
You don't have
not
to tell
think that an
anybody
actor has the right to say, if you like me as an actor, vote as I think politically, because being an actor has nothing to do with their political views.
That's true.
I think that
No, with the
Frederick...
people who come to see you.
Right. I think that Frederick March on the screen is a very fine man. I have been told that in person he's a great gentleman.
He's a
But
wonderful
I would
guy.
not vote as Frederick March votes just because I like him as an actor.
He's a wonderful
I think that, and I go to the other side, I think that Robert Montgomery is a brilliant director, a fine actor, an accomplished thespian and gentleman. I would not vote as he votes, even though I like him as all of the in all the things I've enumerated. Yes, Mac.
Well, I was going to say that a great deal of this, and I don't know whether this is applicable to Canada or not. I don't know the gentleman that well. But I do know that a great many people who find themselves in Canada's spot will say that how was I to know? Now, Canada is not by any means a stupid man. He is...
Nor is he 4 years old.
Nor is he a child. I mean, he's had the rough edges brushed, rubbed off him by being in this business, which is a great education in itself. I mean, it's like a rolling stone. You gather no moss, and certainly you gather no stupidity. And for him to come up and say, well, how was I to know, is no defense to me.
I'm sorry. I must disagree with you.
It is.
Now, wait a
Now, wait a minute. Just a moment. I don't mean to disagree with you.
Well, I'm disagreeing with you,
All
and
right,
you're
good.
quite at liberty
Good,
to
I'll disagree with you then,
with me.
Mac. Here's what I mean. Take an organization like the Southern Conference for Human Welfare, which is an organization made up of Southerners to try to get better equal rights and civil liberties for the Negroes in the South. You see, all of a sudden, because for what reason I still don't know why they've been called a communist.
Attorney
Wait a
General
second.
now-
I live in the South,
Yeah.
Canada. I live in the South, and I can speak on this subject as an authority, and I can
Yeah.
tell you that the people in the South that are trying to do a job of equalizing the Negro, and I speak now of civil rights. I'm not talking about, and I'm going to make that point, I'm not talking about social equality. I'm talking about labor
equal
and
opportunities,
professional opportunities and equalities. Social equality is
That's a
something that
very personal thing.
each man must decide for himself. I feel socially equal to anyone, and I'm sure that everyone feels socially equal to me. I enjoy having people of all races and creeds and colors, etc., in my home and vice versa. I enjoy the interchange of ideas. However, to a Georgian who is deep-dyed a Georgian, that may be a different story. But I believe that all colors and all religions have the right to work as mechanics or doctors or lawyers, regardless of their color,
agree
the
with
color
you.
of their skin, or the religion they profess to follow. But I tell you this, the people that agree with me in the South, and there are many, And they're growing because of education and an interchange of ideas are not the people that are joining organizations. They are the people that voted for Harry Truman because of the Civil Rights Program. They may have disagreed with him on other things, but they felt that the civil rights legislation was a quicker and surer way and an easier way, but a slower way to get there than trying to beat down people's heads with baseball bats or knock through doors or creating scenes by entering Negro entrances in Alabama when they knew that they had to enter the white under the current existing laws of that state at that time. You follow all that.
I follow all that.
Because Wallace's running mate tried to gain publicity by doing just such a thing.
I follow all that.
I think in this case, in the case of ultimately making all people in this country realize that they're individuals and part and parcel of a great country with no distinction or lack of distinction because of color or creed. I think that all the people in this country that realize those things are preferring to take the line of least and yet at the same time hardest resistance, the process of education. Mm-hmm. I do not think, nor have I ever thought, that the Negro situation or the Jewish situation or the Catholic situation or any other that you can name can be settled in 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years. Many, many years after we sit here tonight and discuss this situation, they will still be talking about it. But each time, Canada and Mac, that they discuss it, another 2 people see the light. And the 2s become 4, and the 4 become 8, and the 8 becomes 16, and someday the world will come of age. It will not happen in Peekskill in one afternoon.
You bet your boots.
And I'd like to inject a little thought here. It just occurs to me that some time ago there was a colored gentleman by the name of Frederick Douglass, who was quite a champion of his race.
Somebody ought to write a play on him. There was a great
Well,
man.
as a matter of fact, there was a girl by the name of Shirley Graham that wrote a pretty good book about him not long ago.
But
at any rate,
gentlemen,
yes, we are. And what I wanted to bring out was the fact that he was asked to work hand in glove with a fellow by the name of John Brown, who I think at the start was really liberal and meant civil rights. But unfortunately, just as certain groups, they become so doggone vehement, so doggone militant about this thing that pretty soon they lose all sense of values. They lose all sense of direction, and pretty soon mayhem and murder, it all becomes part of the picture, which is the communist picture. And unfortunately, fellows like Canada Lee, or maybe I shouldn't say that, but apparently the stigma's been attached to them, and so therefore maybe I ought to stick there. But at any rate, people like Canada Lee, let me put it that way, have joined these groups and let the tail wag the dog, so-called. In other words, they get in with this violence, and pretty soon murder is in their mind.
In other words,
I've never joined a group in my life.
Well, you've been attached to them, you become part and
wait a second. Canada, this I know, you have lent your name to advertisements.
But
that is much the same thing.
True.
The man on the street, in the subway, and on the bus doesn't stop to think whether you are or are not a member. You have joined.
That's
you have
the fact that
in
you
his
don't
mind
hold a
joined.
card
I'd like to
doesn't
make
alter.
one thought, though. You just spoke of John Brown, and you expressed the same thing that FDR said, and I say it again and again and again. When the people start out, they are in the center, and then through their vehemence, they go so far in one direction that they do lose that perspective, and that's just exactly what we as a nation are going through today. If we can discount the Robesons and at the same time discount the Kaltenborns and stay in that center, we're going to keep that wonderful equilibrium and keep living up to the Constitution, not completely, but gradually, ever so gradually, become more and more what Washington and Franklin and every other great man thought we might one day become.
I agree with you.
But we will never get there by leaning too far to the left nor too far to the right, because extremes never work out. In other words, it requires intelligence and balance.
Yeah.
And none of the organizations, Canada, that are in the business of creating political opinion today have the balance that we are looking
They
for.
not only create political opinion, they create political strife. That's the trouble.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been talking with Canada Lee, star of the Lost Boundaries motion picture, Mac Clark, professional music man for many, many years. My name is Barry Gray. I'll be back on Sunday night at midnight and next Friday at 8:30. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Here, Bill Henry's report on the news, which follows in a moment.
It's dynamic, inspiring, terrific. It's Walter Winchell at his best in the October Coronet. Read Walter Winchell's hard-hitting, behind-the-scenes story on what makes America great. Read In Defense of America by Walter Winchell in the new October Coronet, now on sale.
Good evening, everyone. It's 8:30 on Friday night. At least it was the last time I looked. This is Barry Gray speaking from the studios of WOR in New York. And each Friday night at this time, we convene at these microphones with people from the political, theatrical, or sporting worlds and discuss things that have happened in the preceding week in the news and in their various fields or callings. We are expecting momentarily the very wonderful pianist and performer, Miss Hazel Scott, and friend husband Adam Clayton Powell, a congressman from one of New York's most popular districts. And at the microphone across from me, we have television and radio actress Miss Hope Miller, who has appeared so many times on the Theater Guild of the Air, the Philco Playhouse, and who has just completed a motion picture, and with a fervent prayer that it shall not be, and it's called Death Trap. Miss Miller, good evening.
Hello, Barry.
Hope, if I may, the informality, I'd like to say real quick that the big news stories tonight, just off the teletypes, are the steel strike, the civil rights story keeps pounding on, and in tonight's, last night's, and the night before newspapers, that's illiterate as can be, but you know what I mean. The night before, there's stories about Lena Horne's series of suits against various Chicago, Omaha, and Kansas City restaurants because of their refusal to admit her. And I'd like to talk about one,
yes, I've been
two,
reading
or three.
About those.
What about the steel strike? What do you think?
Well, all I know is, I've been reading about the fact-finding board's findings, and I've read, of course, of the U.S. Steel and Mr. Fairless's refusal to accede to those demands, and the idea that U.S. Steel doesn't want to bear the entire brunt of the pension, and I read about the package, which I believe they have offered 10 cents an hour, and that the worker should make up the difference, which is, of course, not what the fact-finding board established.
How do you feel about it personally?
Well,
putting you on the spot.
Putting me on the spot, I really am an actress. It's a little far afield for me, but personally, I think U.S. Steel can probably afford, let's say, to accede to the...
Well, when you say, Hope, that you're an actress, I should say that oft times at these microphones, and I might add that's probably what makes it different, I ask actors and actresses to talk about things that are completely far afield, because most people on the outside don't realize that theatrical people are human beings and read the newspapers and feel very strongly the things that appear on the first, second, and third pages, and not the theatrical pages and the sports reviews.
That's very true, but our opinions are really just the opinions of private citizens, and they don't actually carry the weight of informed observers.
I'm not asking it to carry weight. I'm just asking it as a private citizen's opinion. About the steel strike, I'd like to make an opinion, if I may. I feel, first off, that the union is absolutely right, based on many precedents, but most recently the precedent set by the Ford Motor Company. I've said many, many times in the past that I feel that the people that have been attacked so many times as labor leaders in the United States are in truth the people most times that are carrying forward this great battle of labor. It's not a question of labor getting everything and manufacturers or capital getting nothing. It's a question of each getting some share of the balance. I feel that, and have felt for a long time, that the men that work and work very hard at the machines across the country and around the world deserve some reward at the end of 25 or 30 years of service, because actually, what with salaries, taxes, Social Security, etc., there is so little left that I doubt if anyone at the average and normal wage paid today can save enough to retire, as most of the executives can. And it isn't a question of making the fellow that has the initiative and has formed the company and gone to the top. It isn't a question of making him become as poor or as poorly off as the people that work for him. It's a question of what's right is right.
That's right. Barry, I'd like to ask you a question. I know that the U.S. Steel Company said that when they submitted the case to the fact-finding board, they did not obligate themselves, or they weren't bound to agree with the findings. Well, when one submits a case to arbitration or to a fact-finding board, don't they usually accept?
Well, they have. There is of course the precedent. The presidential fact-finding board has no legal power
of
demanding.
Yes, I understand, to enforce any decision.
But their recommendations are usually accepted. There was a case of one airline in the South. They are an interstate line. They operate out of New York, and there was a case where one of their pilots was fired. And the pilot objected. The Airline Pilots Association also objected, and there was a big hassle for many, many months. And finally, President Truman's fact-finding board stepped in and made recommendations that were subsequently followed out. And that has gone back through the months of this activity. I do believe that the strongest precedent set is the one by the Ford Motor Company. I think that the pensions that are being asked today by unions are only right and fair. They've been a long time coming, but it's only another advance for the people that are called labor in the United States. I think that going back 30 or 40 years, there are each step along the way has been fought just as strenuously as U.S. Steel is fighting this battle tonight. But ultimately, the will of the people has been borne out. The pensions are, it's just another step, like the 8-hour day or the 5-day week.
Yes, those all were decided upon in the same way that this very issue is being fought.
One of these death
by
fights.
A test case.
What do you think of the Ford plan, by the way?
I really don't know too much about that. I was going to ask you about the Ford pension plan.
Incidentally, while we were talking, we have a bulletin from the WOR newsroom. President Philip Murray of the CIO United Steelworkers Union has just ordered the nation's steelworkers to strike at 1 minute after midnight. And in the door from the newsroom comes the nationally known pianist and concert artist, Miss Hazel Scott. Miss Scott, this is Miss Miller.
How do you do, Miss Scott?
What happened to the husband?
We just put the radio on in the car since the car couldn't move anyway with 40
Was
seconds
it the traffic?
Oh,
it is
brother.
incredible today, isn't it?
It's the world worst.
I'm terribly sorry that you were late, and yet, actually, we were just talking about steel strikes and stuff, and I was about to get my teeth into the real beef of the night just at this point, and with your advent into the studio, the timing is right. You've probably read, Miss Scott, about Lena Horne having tried to get into a Chicago restaurant, I believe it was, and they refused her admittance, and she has threatened to sue. I understand that somewhat the same story happened to you.
Here we go again. Oh, yes.
Tell us
Same thing
about
happened to me. Well, it's, well, try to be very brief and say what I can without doing anything that my lawyer cautioned me against. First of all, he said, the first rule is don't talk about the case. But we were on our way to Spokane. I was on this long tour during the blizzard of last winter. And we were coming from somewhere in Idaho, Pocatello or something, through there. And we got snowed under completely. Ah, here comes husband man.
He's a big guy.
He's huge, isn't he?
Congressman, if you'll sit over here, please, next to Miss Miller. We're short one microphone. We didn't know whether you were going to show or not, and I understand that the traffic kept you away.
That's one of O'Dwyer's projects, tearing up 40 seconds. He's been happy for 10 minutes.
This is Miss Miller.
Hello.
We were talking about the steel strike, and they've just ordered the strike after midnight. And then I turned to your wife, and I asked her about what her opinion on the Lena Horne case, and she was telling me what had happened during the great blizzard of 48, I believe it was.
49.
40.
January, February.
January 49. Go ahead.
So we were on our way to Spokane for a date there. And I missed 2 dates en route, and we were sort of stuck in the slides. You know, it wasn't that it was snowing, it was just that it would blow, you see, these great winds, and they weren't used to very much snow out there.
I see.
And people would come in with snowplows trying to dig us out, and nothing would happen. Finally, they decided the only thing to do was put the Spokane passengers on a bus, which they did, a Greyhound bus, you know. And I said, oh, brother, here we go. I got out of this nice drawing room where I'd been sleeping with my coat on because we had no heat. And I had a temperature of 103. And we get into the bus, and I'm all muffled up, and I look horrible and feel worse. And we go, I forget how many miles it is from LeGrand, I think it was.
LeGrand, Nebraska? Oregon.
To Spokane, no, to Pasco, Washington, where we stopped for lunch. And we go in, we hadn't eaten anything at all, my companion and myself, Mrs. Wolf, and we go up and we ask for food. I mean, everybody goes in. It's just a little place, you know. We ask for food, and looking at the menu over to see what we want, and suddenly this cute little waitress, she's a cute little blonde thing, she came over and she said, oh, I'm sorry, we don't serve colored people. I mean, in the state of Washington, you know, look, if I were in Georgia, I wouldn't go in the first place. I'd carry a hot dog in my pocket, you know, my mink.
I tell you, in the state of Georgia, you'd be a lot better off carrying the hot dog in your pocket. You can't trust anything down there.
Exactly.
The thing is, about the South, I give the South more credit because the South is honest.
You have a point, Congressman. I tell you, you might be surprised at this. We at these microphones in the South have been talking about these things quite often, and I will say this for the Southerner: he is very definite about his opinions. He doesn't believe in certain things, and he says so very vociferously.
To your face.
It's right. Okay. It's some of the quasi characters in the North who claim to be civil rights patrons and claim this and claim that and talk about our great democratic life, and yet do things like your wife is talking about.
Yeah.
And the Lena Horne incident.
In Georgia, you'd have known where you stood.
Exactly.
Incidentally, have you seen the motion picture Pinky?
Haven't seen it. We were invited by Mr. Scoros to a preview that he had, but I had to go to Washington. She was tired of television. Haven't seen it.
You've got to
Reviews
see
are
it.
sensational.
Saw it last night, and I think, as a matter of fact, Miss Miller did too. I think that
Yes,
it's a tremendous motion picture, and it's very controversial because at the end of the motion picture, where Pinky, who is light enough to pass as white, decides to rejoin her people, it leaves you up in the air, and you wonder whether she's doing the right thing or the wrong thing.
I heard
Everybody
that.
goes out of the
That's
motion.
right. Everybody was leaving the theater yesterday saying,
Mumbling.
I wouldn't have done that, she shouldn't have done that.
That's right.
And I noticed some of the notices said that there would be two camps, two schools of thought on the ending.
I want to ask you, Congressman, do you think that your wife or Miss Horne are right in suing on a situation like this? Do you think that's going to cure the situation, or do you think that education is the basis of the whole problem?
Every American citizen is right whenever they try to secure the rights the Constitution says they should have. Whether it's black or white, whether it's civil or criminal.
Well, of course, Congressman, I've said this too. You know, the President of the United States has come out for civil rights, and I'm for it. But actually, the Civil Rights Bill is nothing more than a reaffirmation of the Bill of Rights. There isn't any real need for a fight on civil rights. We already have in our Constitution and Bill of Rights the civil rights legislation.
The only thing is, you see, first, I'm the author of nearly every civil rights bill. I was the author of them before Mr. Truman was president.
Right.
I wrote them in January when Mr. Roosevelt was president. And the only difference is the present civil rights bills have teeth in them, while our amendments to the Constitution do not. For instance, the FEPC, there's definite teeth. There's a fine and imprisonment, that sort of thing. Anti-lynching, likewise.
I think that the biggest point to be presented with civil rights is the point that I'd like to make now. Most people don't realize that it is not a bill that concerns only the Negro. It's a bill that concerns every individual in the United States, and I've used this as an example. If you're a Catholic and you live in Boston, you're in pretty good shape, because in Boston the Catholics are in the majority, the Irish Catholics. If you are a Jew and you live in New York City, you are again in the majority. If you're an Indian and you live in Arizona, you're in the majority group. If you're a Negro and live in one section of Chicago, you are in the majority group, or in New York's Harlem. But take any one of those individuals that I've mentioned and move them to a section of the country where they become a minority, and they become discriminated. They become a member of a discriminated group, and therefore need civil rights, because there is a great deal of discrimination against Boston Catholics. There is discrimination against Arizona Indians, against New York Jews, and most people think that it just has to do with a Negro from Georgia. It's not so at all.
Barry, I know that some states do have civil rights laws as is. There are laws against discrimination in public places, aren't there, Dr. Powell?
Oh, yeah.
In about 16 states or so now?
16 states have civil rights as regards public places, and then there are 14 that have civil rights as regards employment, FEPCs. But some vary as regards enforcement power. And if you have the law without the enforcement power, you're not getting anywhere. You're just rewriting in different words, as you said.
The Constitution
Barry,
or the Bill of Rights.
That's right.
Well, then when it comes back to Miss Horne suing, actually, if a Negro or a Jew or any other minority race member is barred...
Let's stop right there. All people in the United States are minorities,
in certain regions,
depending on where they live.
Well, I'm taking minorities that have most frequently been barred from, let us say, hotels.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, the hotel or the restaurant that refuses them admittance is really transgressing a law that the state legislature has passed. And in suing, you're merely emphasizing the fact that this is an already established law that has been broken.
In fact, you're law-abiding if you sue.
That's right, you are, because after all, if you're going to condone breaking one law, where will it end? How can you say this law we can break, but others must not be broken? It's just bringing it out in the open.
That's all very true, but I wonder if perhaps the basis of the whole problem is a little more education. I think a few more motion pictures like Pinky or Lost Boundaries, and a few more people like Congressman Powell and so on. People that's my argument, I might add, with Paul Robeson. I think that Paul Robeson made a tragic public relations error. I think that Robeson as an individual could have done a lot more good by attempting to show people around the world that he, and not as a Negro, but as a great singer, regardless of his race, was perfectly willing to accept his responsibilities and in turn raise the level of his own people to a still higher one, as the good doctor has, and Hazel Scott and Lena Horne and Jackie Robinson, and you can go on and on. You see, I basically am against, we're wandering here, but I get very angry when they say Jackie Robinson or Joe Louis, a credit to his race. I get pretty hot at that because you shouldn't say Joe Louis a credit to his race. Joe Louis, boxer. Champion, Joe Louis, championship boxer. Jackie Robinson, good ball player. Paul Robeson, great singer.
Without the qualifying adjective.
It's like picking up a newspaper and you see that 4 hoodlums broke into a jewelry store in Harlem. It will say 4 hoodlums, Joe Dokes Negro.
Yes.
Well, you might just as well put Joe Dokes Catholic or Joe Dokes Jew or Joe Dokes Italian. You go on and on.
Or Joe Dokes Anglo-Saxon.
Right. The whole thing the whole thing right from the beginning is un-American. These fight announcers and so on, they start with that stuff. It's ridiculous. But getting back to Robeson, I believe he made a great public relations error, and I'm sure that the people here at the table probably agree with me. You have anything to say about that, Congressman?
Well, I know as regards Paul, I think Paul has gotten to the place where he's awfully frustrated. He wants to see come to pass overnight that which cannot come to pass overnight. And the only difference between Paul and probably all of us is that he's willing to take any method to bring it to pass, and we don't want to take any method which will leave wounds that will take longer to heal than the problem will to be solved. Such as the South and the Civil War, for instance.
Right.
I think emancipation of the slaves could have been accomplished much more easily and definitely, in long terms, much more lasting, with less bitterness, without war. I'm a pacifist.
You make a point that we had a big hassle here last Friday night. I had a guest.
What?
A hassle.
What's that now?
An argument.
Oh.
I'll
remember that next Monday on the floor of Congress.
We had a big disagreement here last Friday night. I had Canada Lee on as my guest, and I guess I disagree with him.
I received letters of protest. I brought one with me to give you.
About Canada's statements?
You were a very, very bad boy with Canada, this lady said. I don't know who she is.
So she said.
Well, there's probably a few people that think Canada was a bad boy with me, but actually Canada and I are longtime friends. And although we disagree probably politically, that doesn't change my feelings in a friendly vein toward him.
What are his political views?
I don't know. We never did settle that in 25 minutes. And as a matter of fact, I don't think he found out what mine were either. I prefer to feel that Canada is probably, let me say, more liberal than I think we should be at this time. I think that Canada probably feels that things can be done in a hurry, and my argument was to him that things cannot be done in a hurry. We had a big argument after the show, not Canada and myself, but over the dinner table. A lot of people were sitting around that had been listening to the broadcast, and they were talking about the Emancipation Proclamation and civil rights and so forth. And there's one very big thing that a lot of people forget. Anybody can pass a law. It's really a cinch. That's the easiest part of the job, is to get the law through. Public acceptance of a law makes it still another thing. If the public doesn't accept a law, nothing is ever going to happen with it. And that's what happened with the Emancipation Proclamation. Instead of making an overnight thing out of it, there should have been a long period of education. How, I don't know. But somewhere...
That should have been the first FEPC then, Fair Employment Practice.
Probably. But education is the root of the whole thing. You can't raise someone, particularly in the South, for 35 or 40 years, and teach them one method of life, and then suddenly put a law in their life and say this is it or you go to jail. It just doesn't work out in practice. The people in Florida, for example, in one section, Miami Beach, they have laws against restricted hotels. They have laws that allow entertainers to sing and dance, do anything they want, regardless of race, color, or creed. Directly across Biscayne Bay in Miami, you find an entirely different situation. One is still living under the precepts of the South. The other has become northern or modified or modern. And this has taken a long time. I think education is the only answer. I don't think that legal rulings are going to help it.
Well, just as when a manufacturer comes out with a new product, he spends a lot of money educating the public to an acceptance of that product and to an understanding. Just passing a law, if the public is not educated to accept it and to understand it, the law in itself has no power.
Oh, may I interrupt? Pardon me. Talking about education and passing laws. This all is very interesting to me. But would you mind telling me how anything is ever going to be accomplished if we just talk about educating people, and there is no method of educating them? Whenever you open your mouth, you're either a red or you're propagandizing for some specific purpose.
Well, that's awfully easy to combat if the balance of free speech is watched. I was going to switch the subject for just a couple of seconds and talk about education in another light. Right now we're going through a period of labor strife. Most of the people in the United States, when they hear the name John L. Lewis or they hear the name Petrillo or any other labor leader, their hair stands on end because they've been reading newspapers that tell them that Lewis and Petrillo are bad guys. These people have not taken the trouble to investigate the reasons for the being of Petrillo and Lewis. Now, the same thing comes true with the Negro problem. If people were rational, if people were told the truth in newspapers and in magazines and on radio, we wouldn't have to pass civil rights laws. I think that getting back to Pinky and Lost Boundaries, I think that a Pinky and a Lost Boundaries motion picture can do more good than 94 hours of conversation at a microphone.
Precisely.
But you heard the people coming out, some people who said, oh, things like that don't really happen. There are some people who walk out of the theater saying those things were exaggerated.
There again, though, Hope, you're not going to cure the stupidity of an audience of 5,000 in an hour and a half motion picture, but you're going to begin to wear down some of the resistance and begin to make them think. I don't care what they think when they get through, but at least you've made the gray cells operate. There was never a Southerner in the world or a bigot in the world that could stand up against the honest arguments of race and religion. Their only method of attack is fighting in dark closets with smear campaigns and dirty words and so on, as portrayed in the motion picture.
Of course, you've got to have, in addition to your education, however, law wisely administered, because there is always, as there is in the criminal world, civil criminals, criminally minded, socially criminally minded, and they just have to be brought into the correct boundaries of society, the same as we would with a murderer or a thief. There are murderers and thieves in our social world who are absolutely can't be reached through education.
Well, don't misunderstand me. I'm not against civil rights. I'm for civil rights and have said so many times for 2 years on Southern radio that I'm quite sure that most of the Klan are very unhappy with me, which is a compliment to the program. What I'm saying is this, that it's really redundant. The civil rights legislation would not be necessary if we live up to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights in the first place. We are a people that tell the world that we are a great, great country, and we are. We are 98% of the time. But the Achilles heel and the whole operation and the whole business of our civilization is the fact that we have certain standards for certain groups of people. We wouldn't have to worry about the inroads of fascism and communism and reactionaryism or all the other isms if our democracy were working as perfectly as it could if we all lived up to the precepts of the Bill of Rights and the four freedoms and so on. It sounds corny,
right.
but it's true.
Well, when I was conducting my FEPC hearings in the House of Representatives, why, I forget who was before me. I think it was Martin Quigley, the Catholic publisher of a Hollywood trade paper. Quigley has office over in Radio City. Yes. I said to him, no American ever becomes a communist unless democracy fails him.
Very good statement. I'm awfully sorry, Congressman, but we have to get off the air. I'm sorry you were late.
I
wish
too.
We had an hour and a half more. I've been talking with Congressman Adam Clayton Powell, Miss Hazel Scott, Hope Miller, television, radio actress, and motion picture actress. This is the Barry Gray Show. I'll see you Sunday night at midnight with a grab bag full of guests and some surprises. And this is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Yes, WOR will take you out to every one of the 1949 World Series ball games for the 11th straight year in exclusive play-by-play radio broadcasts. For the World Series, it's WOR, WOR-FM, and WOR-TV Channel 9, your World Series stations in New York.
On WOR-TV Channel 9, WOR and WOR-FM, New York.
Good evening, everyone. It's 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in New York City. This is Barry Gray in Studio 8, the old Cracker Box. And tonight, if you don't mind, on this Friday edition of the Coffee Clutch, I'll just wander from news item to show business item, and maybe back again to a news item. This in addition to the Sunday night edition. That's alliterative. This in addition to the Sunday night edition, which is heard midnights until 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I do hope you'll tune in Sunday as well. Well, call me a Johnny-come-lately, call me what you will. Finally, I got around to it after about 5 weeks in mid-Manhattan. I went to see a tremendous show last night, something that made me think, and I'm sure that it's made thousands of New Yorkers mull the old gray matter over and over and over again. I saw the inimitable, all the incomparable, and the very talented Lee J. Cobb in the stage play called Death of a Salesman. The story of Willie Loman hits home, I'll bet, in 98 cases out of 100. It probably grabs people right by the heartstrings and makes them think about something that must have happened in their own household at the approaching of old age by some member of the family. I got something a little bit different out of it, and I'd like to wander with it for a couple of seconds. Willie Loman is played by the great Lee J. Cobb, with whom I had the pleasure of speaking after the play, means to me a discussion of pensions. Oh, I know that Steele and the Ford Motor Company and everybody else in big business today is worried about pension plans and what's going to happen. See if you don't agree with this. Whether or not the Ford people or the Steele people, of course Ford has already gone along with it, but whether or not the Steele people decide one day to pay pensions to the workers or not is, of course, their business. But here is the important thing, and the thing we must all remember. The country grows shorter each day as a result of its work-a-day week. I can remember very distinctly the days a few years ago when, was it Haywood Broun and people that followed in his great footsteps that used to talk about the 8-hour day and the 5-day week. And businessmen in that period said that Haywood Broun was crazy. I think that Gabriel Heater of our own mutual network in those days was a newspaper reporter, and he too went to big business and talked about the 8-hour day and the 5-day week, and big business told Gabe Heater that he was crazy. But the fact remains that as the years go on from 28 to 35 and from 35 to 42 and now in the year 1949, more and more people are beginning to think of the fact that life is speeded up, and that where they used to work a 70-hour week, they now work a 40-hour week, and it's beginning to look as though it's one day going to be a 28-hour-a-week week. And with that comes the idea, too, that with life speeded up, they're looking for younger and still younger men, people that move a bit more quickly, with a bit more precision. And then you begin to think, what is to happen to the people who are 55 and 60 and 62 and 65 who have put in 25 and 30 and 35 years at their chosen jobs? I'm not saying at this point that it is the sole and complete duty of big business to support the people that have worked in their firms for 30 or 35 years. I just say that someone ought to do it. I'm in favor, of course, of Social Security plans, but Social Security at this late date is still a meager thing whereby you can hardly buy a pound of butter and a loaf of bread. Social Security is just a phrase given to a very weak-kneed plan that has not yet worked in a big way. I don't see how the people, particularly in some sections of the country with which I'm familiar, can get along on the $15 and $18 and $22 a week that they've been handed after doing their best for God and country for some 45 or 50 years. Retired railroad workers, retired steelmen, retired coal miners who have only one thing out of retirement, the nice memories that they can look back upon, but no cash in hand with which to buy the gilded duck. So much for pension plans. I might add, incidentally, to the people listening around the island, that I have a young bulb-nosed type who is running around in the studio with a camera, and this is not calculated to help the presentation of this broadcast at any moment. Go ahead. Thank you. There's a big story that comes out of the West Coast, and to those of you, ladies and gentlemen, that listen to this program on Sunday night, you, of course, heard the requiem that I felt so closely and dearly, the requiem to the late Buddy Clark. And if you've been reading the newspapers the last couple of days, you've noticed the items growing smaller and shorter and in weaker and weaker type. And before the story becomes obliterated completely by the World Series or some other great and much closer and more important story, I'd like to spend a few words with it, if I may. The Buddy Clark story is a tragedy in that the accident should not have happened at any time. The pilot that flew the plane from Fresno, California, a town that's about halfway up the California coast between Los Angeles and San Francisco, The pilot that flew that plane from Fresno and tried to bring it into the Los Angeles airport, obviously, according to the CAA late yesterday, had not taken the trouble to even investigate the possibility of being nearly out of gas. I might add that Fresno, California, by air is no more than 200 miles, 200 air miles from Los Angeles, barely an hour's flight. And it seemed so tragic that such a short flight should have ended in such a catastrophe. Number one, the pilot did not examine the gas tank. That's obvious. Number two, the plane upon landing split in two, and this is where fate takes the upper hand. The plane, in splitting in two, threw its occupants from the airship. 4 of them slid across the street, as did Buddy Clark. The 4, however, came to rest upon the pavement. Buddy Clark, unfortunately, had his head smashed against a curb, and that's what did it. And then, too, I understand from reporters on the scene, and I've talked to a couple on the coast since then, I understand that in rushing Buddy Clark to the Georgia Street Receiving Hospital, they were treating him for just a fractured skull. They did not know, and of course they shouldn't have known, that Buddy Clark had been suffering from a very serious stomach condition for a good many years, and as a matter of fact had just come out of the hospital recently as a result of an operation on a stomach ulcer. And that, too, created an internal hemorrhage which hastened his demise. There have been some vicious people that at no time in Buddy Clark's life, now in his death, wish to say unkind things about the late, great singer, and have hastened to add remarks up and down the main stem that would lead you to believe that Buddy Clark was not a nice guy in life and did not take care of his family in death. And I would like to straighten that out right now. The Clark family, I understand, will come into some $30,000 worth of insurance, all that he could possibly get with his ulcer condition, in addition to the fact that a house that is very large and mansion-like is completely paid for, and 2, records that will go on and on and on for many years and pay them a handsome stipend for quite a good long time. Then, too, I think that we should all take hats off tonight to a wonderful little guy who is one of the vice presidents of the Columbia Recording Corporation. I'm speaking of Manny Sachs, the mentor and the fellow that's discovered people like Sinatra and Doris Day, yes, and Buddy Clark, too. And according to Manny Sachs, I understand that they're going to have a series of broadcasts each Sunday night in the appointed time, 10 p.m., in which the late Buddy Clark was to have been starred. Only in this case, it will be people such as Dinah Shore, Frank Sinatra, and it goes on and on. The list is strong and mighty, and all of the artists performing are foregoing their salary, the money to be given to the Clark family. It should roll up into quite a handsome ball of loot. I'll be back in a couple of moments. Here's a public service word.
Because WOR believes that an informed citizenry is just about the greatest safeguard a democracy has, and because we know that a radio station is in a unique position to help inform its listeners, we feel our news service to you is one of our most important activities. As a matter of fact, WOR devotes at least 4 hours a day of its airtime to news programs, accurate, concise, up-to-the-minute reports on the latest happenings in your home community, the nation, and the world. That's a lot of precious hours, and they are necessary in order that there will be at least one news broadcast every day to meet the need and convenience of every single listener. From 6:30 every weekday morning to 6:30 the next morning, there's a news program to suit every listener. The early morning riser, the farmer, the homemaker relaxing for a moment after getting her family off to school and office. For those who like to catch up on world events while eating dinner, and for those who want to hear the news just before they turn in at night. It's a pretty impressive array of time and reporters, and that's not even mentioning our commentary broadcasts, sportscasts, and weather reports. So to keep in tune with the times, keep tuned to WOR.
Thank you. You know, it's a funny thing about big business. Every once in a while, when they want to propagate a fund, a plan, or a discussion, they usually have a few millions of dollars to toss around and spend on newspaper advertising, radio advertising, word-of-mouth publicity, etc. I think it was President Truman a few months ago that pointed out in one of his Washington so-called fireside chats that the little guy of the United States cannot afford these very expensive procedures and cannot take large newspaper ads such as the A&P is currently doing or such as Big Steel is currently doing. They cannot ask the rest of the country for the things they want via the newspaper printed page or radio programs. It lies, as a matter of fact, within the realm of the commentator, the man that sits at the microphone that feels strongly about these things to present the other side, the little guy's side. And for that reason, I'd like to talk for a couple of seconds about socialized medicine and then wander into the Honolulu pineapple type strike and get with that for a minute or two. Down south for the last 6 or 7 months, we've been doing a lot of talking about socialized medicine and finally come to the point where actually we shouldn't call it socialized medicine at all, but call it a national health insurance plan. National health insurance is one thing and socialized medicine is quite another, and I'd like to explain the difference between the two. But first point out that the American Medical Association has already spent almost all of the $3.5 million that they had requested from their membership fund to fight the socialized medicinal plan as proposed by President Truman. They are fighting it tooth and nail and right down to the last inch. They don't want any part of it because they say it will bring about a socialist form of government. That, of course, is ridiculous and completely untrue because, contrary to the AMA's statement, socialized medicine is working, not well, but working in the British Isles. And this on the statements of many, many people that have recently returned and seem to know what they're talking about. However, I, as one citizen, if I may, am not particularly in favor of having the doctors and the dentists of the United States all work together for the government's patients. I don't believe, as a matter of fact, that a doctor or a dentist worth his salt will ever refuse to wait for a couple of weeks for his money. You know, of course, this whole thing started when millions of Mrs. Joneses started talking about Dr. Smith down the street who wanted his money in advance. And they couldn't afford to give him his money in advance to treat Susie or Mike or Joe, and therefore they rose up in arms and started to write letters to the President of the United States and the Congress. And they came up with a plan somewhat like the British Isles plan, whereby if you wanted to go to a doctor, you wouldn't have to pay the doctor. You just go and give him something like your Social Security number, and he in turn would send your bill to the United States government, and the United States government would pay that doctor. That means, of course, that everyone in the United States, man, woman, or child, could go to any doctor that they chose to. They could also go to any dentist that they cared to visit, and the dentists and the doctors would bill the United States government, and in turn the government would collect it from the people by weekly taxes, somewhat like the Social Security deduction. Have I made myself clear? Have I? All right. Now, the AMA disagree with that plan completely. The American Medical Association is comprised of almost all of the doctors of the United States, and they say that, number one, it will start the patients of this country into becoming the biggest group of gold bricks the world has ever known. And they point out that in England, many thousands of Great Britain citizens have rushed to the doctors and dentists and gotten glasses that they really didn't need. They've gotten false plates that they really didn't need, both uppers and lowers. They've complained of various aches and pains that some of the doctors say were never really there. And according to the American Medical Association, it will turn us into a nation of hypochondriacs or gold bricks, guys that say they're sick but really aren't, just trying to keep from doing a day's work and earning a day's pay. That's their argument, and I'm being fair and giving both sides of it. The other side of the story is this, and this is President Truman's side. He says that some of the things that the AMA say are quite true, but the fact remains that 68 million people in the United States, and that's better than half, or about half of the population currently, 68 million people in the United States cannot afford proper medical or dental care. And it's true, and I ask you to ask yourself if you could afford any great layoff for a week or a month or a year and still your family would be taken care of, and I'll venture to say the answer would be no, because very few of us can afford any lengthy and serious illness such as TB, cancer, and the other great scourges of mankind. The President says that 68 million people are in this condition today, and he points out also that 325,000 people each year die needlessly as a result of lack of proper medical, yes, and dental care, too. These are the facts and the statements. And I'd like to propose a compromise, if I might. And I've been talking about this compromise for a good many months. I don't believe, first of all, and as I said earlier, that any doctor or dentist worth his salt will ever refuse to wait for his money.
What's your favorite radio program? Think carefully before you do business with a man who asks this question. You may be gypped with shoddy merchandise. Remember, a legitimate researcher never has anything to sell. When in doubt, check with your Better Business Bureau, 280 Broadway in New York City.
Thank you, and good evening again. A couple of brief seconds about the story that comes out of Honolulu tonight. I might add that I'm very happy that the strike has been settled between the Harry Bridges strikers and the Big Five or the Big Six of Honolulu. In all the time that I've been reading the story that's come out of Hawaii about the strike by the working men for higher wages in keeping with the the wages that were in effect on the mainland of the United States. I have not yet read one word that explained why the men were striking. Of course, the newspapers pointed out that the men wanted more money. They didn't say, however, why they could not get more money under the old plan, by doing their job properly. I should like to explain at this point that in the Hawaiian Islands for many, many years, and I mean many years, there have been 5 or 6 companies that have controlled all of the big business and small business of the Hawaiian Islands. If you worked for one of the 5 and you asked for more money and they fired you, the chances were 99 out of 100 that when you went to apply at company number 2, 3, 4, or 5, the word had already gotten around that you were not a nice fellow, that you wanted to be paid for your day's labor, and you were not hired. I think they call it a blacklist. No one can prove it, but the fact remains that for many years, if you worked for one company and if you were fired for any reason at all, you never managed to work for any of the other 4 or 5. Begins to look like circumstantial evidence. Therefore, after many years, the only way it seemed that they could get the raise and pay that they desired was for all of them to walk out at once. There was much talk about how the islands were tied up, how food could not come in or food couldn't get out, but the fact remained that the only weapon the little guys of the Hawaiian Islands had was to strike as they did, walk out in a body and ask for that 14 cents an hour more in pay. And they did get it. I might add, too, that the people that have been making the most noise about the longshoremen strike in the Hawaiian Islands are people that have never done any heavier work than just lifting up a pen and applying it to a piece of paper. It's always the people that stand back and talk disparagingly about the coal miners or about the musicians or about the people that pack pineapples, these people that stand back in their starched shirts and neat blue suits and discuss the guys that are doing heavy work and say they shouldn't be given that 7 cents an hour because they don't deserve it. These are the people, the ones that speak disparagingly, that have never done a day's work such as this is, nor have they ever experienced what is the word I'm looking for? Have they ever experienced the experience of watching a man come up from the pits, of packing pineapple on a ship and doing all the other drudge jobs that must be done so that you and me may eat, huh? Oh, I know manual labor is the word. Thank you very much. One quick line before I get off this mic. I'm too amused by the story about a Stanley W. Omdahl, $50 a week bank teller, who yesterday clipped $9,900 from a Brooklyn bank and was picked up in Las Vegas, Nevada. The story goes on to say that he'd been with the bank for 5 years and showed a brilliant and bright future. And I want to know, if he did, how come he was only making $50 a week? Ladies and gentlemen, I give you tonight, before I leave, the picture of a good American, a fellow that's hated and attacked by Westbrook Pegler and the Daily Worker all at the same time. This is Barry Gray, and thanks and good night.
This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Caught cold? Take laxative bromoquinine cold tablets. No other tablets taken for colds can promise greater relief from headache, fever, stopped-up nose. For some things, aspirin's fine, but for a nasty cold, take bromoquinine.
Hear the World Series exclusively on WOR. See it on WOR TV, Channel 9. WOR and WOR FM, New York.
Here's 5 minutes of the latest news, brought to you by Johns Manville, producers of asbestos, the magic mineral, the great enemy of fire. Your reporter, Bill Henry.
Tonight's thumbnail summary on the World Series shows the New York Yankees with a 2-1 lead in games, thanks to today's 4-3 victory over the Brooklyn Dodgers. The rival pitchers again held the upper hand until the 9th inning, and at that point the two teams scored more runs in one inning than in all the 26 previous innings put together. Brooklynites are talking to themselves tonight. It's mighty tough going when you get 2 home runs in the 9th inning and still can't win a close ball game. The case for the Navy was made clear by Admiral A.W. Radford, Chief of the Pacific Fleet, today. He pulled no punches before the Congressional Committee, said he supports unification, but he believes safeguards are needed to prevent disastrous results during the transition period. He said he believed that vital decisions on highly technical defense matters are being made by civilians in the Defense Department without all the facts, many of them facts which only the Navy could supply. He characterized the Air Force B-36 bomber as a billion-dollar blunder, a 1941 airplane which would be a liability on defense of questionable efficiency on offense. Testimony will continue tomorrow, but naval morale is much higher tonight, and the proposed changes in the Unification Act, suggested this afternoon as a subject for discussion by Chairman Vinson, sounded as if the Navy had made considerable progress on the first day of the presentation of its case. On the foreign scene today, the Russians, as predicted, stepped in and set up a communist stooge government in East Germany. France is still looking for a new prime minister. Britain is all wrapped up in the proposed date for the all-important election, a date which will probably be set late next week after Foreign Minister Ernie Bevin returns from the United Nations meeting in New York.
Good morning. This is Hawthorne and...
Good evening, everyone. This is Barry Gray in New York at the studios of WOR. For the next 25 minutes, as is our custom on Friday nights, we'll wander around with a guest chosen from tonight from the promotional world, and later on we hope one of the comedy kings of U.S. show business. As you've probably ascertained by this time, if you've been listening for the last 6 or 7 weeks, this Friday night edition of the Sunday Night Coffee Clutch is just a shortened version. On Sundays we gather here at Cracker Box number 8 from midnight until 2 in the morning Eastern Standard Time. And as you probably have also discovered, this was a very brief and shortened series because I must fly with the birds in a few days to the sunny climes of Florida, and so it behooves us to announce at this time that this is the end of the Friday night series with but 2 more Sunday night shows to go. We'll talk about that more at the end of the stanza. My guest tonight is, in his field, one of the most important guys that works with typewriter, pen, quill, and ink. He comes from the field of motion pictures. He's the head of promotion and publicity and exploitation for a brand new company within the industry, a fledgling, however, a very strong and ever stronger fledgling, the Eagle Lion Picture Company. And I would like to have you meet Mr. Leon Brandt.
Thank you very much, Barry. It's really a pleasure to be here with you, and I appreciate your asking me down here. I do, however, resent the speed with which I had to gulp my dinner tonight. But the pleasure does overcome that. It's nice to be down here and to chat with you.
Thank you very much. Leon, I'd like to talk first, if I may, about a serious situation that is in all the pages of the trade papers and affects most of the people within show business, the business of the Screen Publicist Guild. I understand that there is a group known as the SPG that is having some difficulty in organizing itself, and I would like to hear about it. I'd like to hear both sides of the story because, frankly, I'm unaware as to what's going on.
Well, Barry, frankly, you put me in somewhat of a spot. I'll try to explain what I do know about the controversy right now. That is the little I do know. I do know that a lot of these boys and girls in the industry who are screen publicists are presently in the middle of quite a battle with the various screen companies trying to be recognized by these companies, or I should say trying to have their union recognized by these companies.
Let me ask you first, is the SPG CIO or AFFL?
The SPG in the East is CIO.
I see.
The SPG on the coast is AFFL.
I see. Go ahead.
They cover people doing the same types of work, but they have different union affiliations.
Mm-hmm.
The SPG boys on the coast, who were associated with the AFFL, have long since won their battle, and they've long since been recognized and have won the recognition that the people here in the East are presently trying to win.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Well, I think that from what I understand of this SPG controversy right now, most of the action centers around working conditions more so than money. In other words, they want to feel secure in their jobs. And I think that they're presently negotiating with a great many companies who I hope will recognize them.
I understand that the Publicist Guild right now, most of the publicists on Broadway are generally free agents. Those people that work alone and generally round up a few clients and try to charge them X dollars per week. And they have been disorganized up to this point. What brought about the feel for organization? I'm curious about that.
Well, the people you referred to, for the most part, are freelance press agents, Barry. I mean, they are not company employees.
Mm-hmm.
The people, the screen publicists who are presently engaged in these negotiations are all employees of various big screen companies, big film companies, I should say.
Why would they want to organize? Do they feel that they're underpaid?
Well, as I said, I don't think that it is the money that they're interested so much in as it is the the feeling of economic freedom and the feeling that their jobs are protected against what they presently consider injustices. Now, speaking for Eagle Lion Films, I'm happy to say that we are the only company in the business that has steadfastly given the Screen Publicists Guild a contract. The other companies, since a year ago last September, have had no existing contract with the Screen Publicists Guild. I understand that United Artists just recently signed a new contract with them. Our relations with the union and with our employees has always been of a very friendly and a very understanding nature.
It's quite obvious your pictures are, too, and that brings up the another point that I'd like to talk about briefly, or should we invite our other guest in and then get back to the picture
well,
business
I'd love to have your other guest come in. He's a very interesting fellow, possibly a lot more interesting and amusing than I am.
Suppose you go ahead and introduce him, and then I'll add a couple of words to it.
I want a very big introduction. This is really a job. I mean, we have with us tonight, folks, a fellow who is undoubtedly a comedian. Everybody accepts him as a comedian. He's very funny at times.
That's good.
I'm really a ham tonight.
You're a boiled ham.
But he is a great guy, and I've always enjoyed him very much. And wherever he has played, I've come to see him. I'm the one with his mother.
Yes, thank you.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy
to
introduce to you Mr. Milton Berle.
Thank you very much. What is your name, sir?
This is Leon Brandt, the promotional
director. Yes.
No, Eagle Lion Pictures.
Oh, Eagle Lion Pictures, formerly Briny Foy.
I wanted to take just 30 seconds and tell you how this came about. Number one, our association, Milton's and myself, goes back about 10 or 12 years. I was walking down Broadway one night in New York, and I looked up. I was brand new in the town, Johnny-come-lately of 20 minutes
You
standing.
don't tell the same story again, Barry.
Well, it's never been told in New York.
Yes, it has been told so many times that I'd like to hear it again.
Anyway, there was a place operating where the Bond Clothing Stores is currently today, called the International Casino.
It is now in Niagara Falls, if you've been there. It's
yes, and there's a train
spraying
running
water all over Broadway tonight.
Right. And I walked upstairs and I introduced...
It's going to be clever dialogue, I assure you. I want you folks not to leave your radios.
I introduced myself to the now king of comedy, and he has been a firm, steadfast friend of mine for 11 or 12 years, and...
So what's with the money you owe me?
No, I just want to say, what money? I just want to say that there are a few people, that resent Milton's great success, and it is a great and colossal success. And as I said a couple of days ago...
Don't speak about Fred Allen.
People that attack Milton Berle for this or that or the other thing always remind me of mosquitoes bothering an elephant, because the guy is tremendous in stature. All right, now you got your introduction.
Thank you very much, Barry Clyde.
Yes.
Nothing. I was listening to you speak with Mr. Brandt just now about the publicity and public relations and publicists.
The SPG, the Screen Publicists Guild.
A very, very wonderful guild, incidentally. Now, what was the whole discussion about? I would like to get on a square table with some rounds. Rounds with some squares.
All I was talking about, Milton, I was asking Leon what the story was, because I'd read in somebody's column the other day that there was a big fight going on for recognition. The SPG want to be recognized by the motion picture companies, and they're going round and round.
Yeah?
Can you add to that?
Well, how do you feel, Leon?
Well, I feel that they're going round and round, just as Barry says.
Do you think they should be recognized?
I do.
Well, I do. I was listening just to the tail end of the conversation, Barry, and I think that for all the great work that they've done and continue to do and all the painstaking jobs that they put in publicizing pictures and actors, that they should be recognized.
Let me ask you this and change the subject for a couple of seconds.
I would like to talk seriously.
I would like to talk seriously with you. I would like to know, number one, how does your picture look and what's the title of it?
The name of the picture is Always Leave Them Laughing, and it is not an Eagle Lion picture. It is a Warner Brothers picture. Sorry to say that, Mr. Brandt.
One of the minor companies.
Yes. Thank you, John L. Lewis. Speaking of minors, now let's not talk.
Go ahead, Milton.
I could say you better get a room tonight after the
No,
call.
I happen to be suffering from a very bad cold. I got it standing in the draft waiting for the boss to let me into the office.
That's clever.
Nothing.
That's clever. Who writes for you? Young
You.
one? That's right.
Milton,
We're not
what
going to
about
murder
the
each
picture?
other. The picture, I'm not going to discuss it too much. I'm just going to say that I was out there for three months. We made the picture. It took us about 8.5, 9 weeks to make the picture and the preparation for it. And it looks like a pretty funny picture. My mother thinks so, at least.
She's a great woman.
Yeah, she's a good one. But she can't be in every theater where the picture plays.
She'll try.
She might have to buy her a bicycle.
On your return, Milton, you went on the TV show for the sponsors, Texaco,
Yeah.
And you've been on, what, 3 weeks?
This is going on the 5th week.
Going on the 5th, the third and the 4th.
Feels like the 85th
I know
already.
what you mean. They were wrapped generally by the critics. How do you feel about that? Does it zing you a little when you've been at the peak and they sort of expect you to keep delivering 900% shows every Tuesday?
Well, let me tell you something. This TV business, Barry, being that you're discussing things from the theatrical standpoint and from the entertainment world while we're on television, I think this would be a very appropriate time right now to tell you that television is possibly 10 times harder to do every week than a radio program.
Sure.
Number one, it's the preparation for it. And I just read an article in Earl Wilson's column that O&J, Olson and Johnson, will stop doing television October 27th, because it's too strenuous and too hard to get a show every week. The surplus and the amount of material that one eats up over a period of 39 weeks is equivalent to, I'd say, 20 to 30 years of basic entertainment and material that you have gathered in the period of your life as an actor or a comedian or a writer. You see, the one thing that's going to be the big trouble with television is the manpower, the physical manpower, meaning you need too much strength to put on a show every week, providing you do it the way we're doing it, or I do it, and I sort of triple threat, and I produce and direct, and I'm in it, and gathering the material and getting writers to write it and editing it and putting it on. There's a strenuous job. You see, we, right now, television, I do not think, is prepared to spend monies on such greats as Rodgers and Hammerstein and Billy Roses and great producers, and great writers and great scenario writers and motion picture directors and everything. And if they were prepared to pay them, I don't know if these greats, these big manpowers, these great mental wizards, would accept it, because it's too tough. After all, we will take Joe Brown or Joe Frank or anybody, I'll just take an anonymous name, who is a great writer or a great producer, and he can make, financially, he can make just as much money doing one picture a year. Why should he strain himself physically to do a television show every week? Now, I will tell you one thing, that in television, you have got to just try to hit an average over a period of the year in an overall figure of doing an average percentage of the type of a show. Either it's going to be good as an average. You cannot be great every week. It was proven by the great DeMag when Joe was sick. He lost 12 pounds, he had virus, and you know what happened during the season.
Sure.
That does not make Mr. DiMaggio a has-been.
That's right.
That makes him a man that is just a human being and is not a human robot or a dynamo.
His absence proves his greatness.
Well, his absence proves his greatness, but you cannot get 3 for 5 every time you get to the bat.
Right.
You cannot hit the right field fences. And you got to just look at the end of the year where Joe wound up with 346.
Well, let me ask you,
in the amount of games that he was in.
Don't you think that the critics then are being unfair in not explaining this?
Well, I'll explain it this way. You know, when you go into a restaurant, Barry, and order a dinner, you only know what you pay for, and what you're going to eat, and what you see on the plate and on the platter. When you go to see a picture, either it be Eagle Lion or Warner's or Paramount, and you see a picture and you pay your admission, you only know what you see and what you should appreciate. Now, I cannot convict any critics, columnists, or anything for supposedly tearing down the initial show that we did. But I will say that if, in all fairness, if they took everything into consideration, and they are in the arts and science world, in newspapers and critics, that they should understand it a little closer and get into it a little thoroughly, much more than they've gotten into it. Now, our first show that we did, which we had Duke Ellington, and we ran into quite a lot of troubles, but we cannot go to Chicago and Des Moines and Houston Detroit and Cincinnati and here in this metropolis and tell each person that has a television set what went wrong before the show.
Right.
We only know, and they only know what they see. Our first show, we had quite a few difficulties, which I would rather not discuss. I will tell you one, that the network, our station, we held up our rehearsals and everything for 2 complete hours. So we sat there for 2 hours doing nothing when we should have been rehearsing to make it more perfected. Now, on account of a strike, a certain electrician strike, this was not explained. But it's very peculiar. If you do one not-so-good show, that is, of course, as the saying goes, the penalty of being on top or so-called leadership. If you could do one fair show against one great show, you're as good as the last thing you do.
Right.
And when DiMaggio, I have to go back to him because he's a great example, and he was sick during the season, and he came back just before the season ended, not during the season, not during the series, and he hit 4 home runs. They said, my goodness, Joe DiMaggio, do you see what? Well, this man has never lost his talent. We can never, we can never forget that this man is still a great man. I'm not putting myself into the lines of greats. I'm just talking about human beings and personalities that are just as human as Mr. John Doe and that are not infallible.
It's best summed up, Milton, and your summation has been wonderful, but I'd like to add another word. It's best summed up by something that's been said here a couple of times. Performers are human beings, and even the greatest...
I don't think that the critics and newspaper people think that performers are human beings. Now, I was out in California during these past 3 months making a picture, Barry. I read a lot about the fabulous things that happen to Hollywood stars, where someone goes out on a binge and gets tired and this and that. Well, I am not going to say that they're right, but I'm not going to condemn them. The strenuous work that one goes through in being at the studio at 6:15 in the morning and working to 7 o'clock at night and cannot stand up on their feet, for a point of relaxation, it's just like a man that is a dig ditcher or whomever he may be, or he's in the bakery business and he works hard, he wants to go out and relax.
Right.
But they do not allow a man that belongs to the art and sciences to relax.
It's very true.
They do not do it.
I wonder if I can ask you a question, Milton.
I just want to say one word, Leon, and then please I want you to get in. It's all brought about, I think, Milton, by the fact that too much talk has been made about Hollywood being a land of $5,000 and $10,000 a week, and not too much about what they go through to get the $5,000 and $10,000 and the horrible fatality rate. I'm not speaking of death now. I'm speaking of the fatality rate of stars as they slide from public favor, one by one, dozens of them. Yes, Leon, you were going to say.
I wanted to ask Milton a question. Something that I've been thinking of for a long time with regard to television, though, of course, my first love is the motion pictures. I have a feeling that the powers that be in television are prostituting great players like Milton and other fine comedians and actors by expecting them to do a show every week. I don't think that it's possible, and I think that those fellows would be much smarter and would preserve the talent that they have on television if they didn't expect that of them.
Well, that's all right, Leon, but I want you to tell me whom expects this. Who?
Well, I mean, I presume that that's the way the contract is written with the...
Oh, you mean with the client
with the client and sponsor, and the sponsor expects that you're going to do a show every week.
We must always say that the public be pleased. If the public demands, we try to do that without jeopardizing our own position and our future. Now, we do receive thousands of letters every week saying that we hear that you're going to do a television show twice a month. Please, Milton, or dear Uncle Milton from Junior, who is 5 years old, don't do it. We want to see every week. Well, we must take the amount of percentages and the masses and put that together.
Milton, I want to say one thing, though, and I want to go back to the days of the beginnings of Amos and Andy. This all lies in the education of the public to expect certain things. When Amos and Andy first started, if my history books are correct, they were doing a once-a-week show. And I believe it was not the Amos and Andy show specifically, but the serial shows of that time were once a week and an hour in length. Then someone got the bright idea of making them a half hour a day, 5 times a week, and then they went to 15 minutes a day.
That was originally they started out in Chicago with Sam and Henry.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about Amos,
Amos and Andy?
And I'm talking about the trend. You remember the Merton Marge era, where suddenly the 5-a-week, 15-minute strip became big-time and listenable radio. Now, what Leon is getting at is this. The Texaco people or any other sponsors that attempt to put on a weekly TV show are educating the public to expect a weekly performance by a great star. And he is saying that in that education, they're doing a wrong thing. They should educate them in the beginning to expect it only once a month.
Well, let me explain something. When I first went on television a year ago last May, the big tough main stem and all the critics and newspapermen and all those that are supposedly in the know thought, well, now Mr. B will be on for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then he will run out of material and he will run out of gimmicks to do and things to say and acts to introduce. Then on the 4th week they said he won't last another one. Well, we finished out 39 weeks. Now, there's always the problem of coming up of what's new.
Yeah.
Now, this is his answer. This is his problem, or his question, Mr. Brandt's question about should we do it every week and should the audience expect it from us every week, but mostly all should a sponsor like Texaco expect us to do it every week. I'll tell you, I find that I can do it every week, though it is a challenge. You see, I coined a phrase, and I said that a television show of the Texaco type, Star Theater, is like a Broadway show without going to New Haven. We only have one chance. Right. Now, to kinescope a show, to put it on a kinescope, we can do like they do on transcriptions, and that is to shoot an hour and a half of entertainment, put it on film, then cut it out, piece it together, and the audience will not know the difference. I do say one thing, that kinescoping, which we didn't bring up the story about, which I want to speak about, will not be as important to the television viewer as a live show from a variety standpoint. Because if the audience that are watching our shows can visualize that the thing that they're seeing is happening at the time that they're seeing it, it adds to a great psychological feeling. Do you agree with that?
Of course. Well, it's like this broadcast. It would not have any impact whatsoever.
It was on transcription.
If it were on transcription. I do have something that is on transcription for about 40 seconds. I don't know.
Hello, operator. You've got Mr. and Mrs. New York on the phone? Put them on. Hello, this is Bert Parks with a quick quiz and some fast answers. Now tell me, how many votes were cast in this year's Miss Rheingold contest? How many? Oh, I'm sorry. Almost 7 million votes have been counted already. It's now the second largest election in the USA. You voted for who? Oh, she's awfully cute. Wait and see. But now for the big question. Can you tell me who said this?
My beer is Rheingold, the dry beer.
What? You just said that? Right. You said it, I said it, everybody's saying it. Yes, more people than ever are saying, my beer is Rheingold, the dry beer. It's the largest selling beer in town because New Yorkers know how beer should taste. They know that Rheingold is New York's one and only extra dry beer, that every glass of Rheingold is always as perfect as the one before. Now, this is Bert Parks with all the questions, and for the right answer to the perfect beer, say Rheingold Extra Dry.
That's exactly what you understand what I mean?
I do.
If that's the only way I figured.
And you don't really feel, Milton, that if you only did 12 monthly shows a year, that the public would become educated to this fact and probably appreciate
Well, I'll tell you what,
more.
when you say become educated, they are now educated. I am in a position now that they are educated to a show every week. And if I'm able to do it physically and mentally, I'm going to do it.
Do you feel that you'll continue to be able?
Yes, I will.
In other words, you are contradicting the statements of some of the not-so-well-wishers on Broadway.
Oh, I wouldn't say they're not so well-wishers. I wouldn't put them in that category.
Let's call them front-runners. They're riding with a winning guy.
They're always on the BW bandwagon.
That's very good. Milton, I want to thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, Barry, to be with you, and Mr. Brand, it's good to see you. Thanks for inviting me here, and lots of good luck.
My pleasure.
And I'll see you down south, huh?
Yeah. Are you going to work in Miami
No,
this
I'm
year?
not. No, I'm not going to.
I'm
going to take a few weeks off. Just to go down and be with you.
I thank you.
Good night, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Milton Berle, ladies and gentlemen. And Leon, we've got 35 seconds. Now, what about the picture business?
Well, there isn't much to
You
say
can tell
about
it
the
all in
picture
35
business.
seconds.
I can tell you all about the picture business in 35 seconds, and Milton's new picture, which I've heard about. I understand it's a pretty good picture, Milton.
I hear it's very good.
I hear that your comedy is very excellent in the picture.
Leon, I want to thank you very much for coming in, and I do hope that we didn't work at cross purposes with each other tonight. It was a pleasure to discuss with Milton Berle and Leon Brandt of Eagle Lion Motion Pictures, the business of TV and a little of the motion picture business. I'll see you guys and gals on Sunday night at midnight. This is Barry Gray and the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Good night, Barry.
Following station identification, you'll hear Bill Henry and the news.